Present before the court with you is counsel, Mr. Shapiro, Mr. Cochran, Mr. Douglas, Mr. Bailey. People represented by Ms. Clark, Mr. Darden, and Ms. Lewis. The jury is not present. And before we begin this morning's session, the court would like to take the personal opportunity to wish a happy birthday to Ruth Archie, who is one of our regular audience, and on her birthday today. All right, counsel, is there anything we need to put on the record before we join with the jury again? Mr. Bailey.
Yesterday there was a question raised as to whether or not I had spoken personally to a witness named Max Cordoba, and that question arose from a mistake Mr. Cordoba made when being questioned on Dateline. NBC yesterday at various times during the day and Dateline itself last night corrected that misstatement. They found Mr. Cordoba in Phoenix, and he recalled that briefly while Mr. McKenna was interviewing him about the facts of the case, that I had spoken with him about his appearance. And I would simply like, because the prior version is now a part of this case to a degree, to show the court, who I gather has not seen it, and the record that such an event took place, if I may.
You may.
And Mr. Harris, this is from last night's Dateline, and I personally taped it.
I take it there's no foundational objection. Thank you.
Hasn't located the spot. Perhaps that fact is sufficiently notorious so that it does not have to be played, the retraction, so to speak, by
All right. Well, Mr.
the
Bailey,
witness.
I just wanted to give you the opportunity.
I appreciate that, but I don't want to hold up the jury any more than we have. I'll simply make that assertion. I take it from lack of any contradiction that at least some members of the prosecution are familiar with the change in position by the witness.
All right. All right, Ms. Clark, anything else before we proceed with the jury? Is there anything else you wish to, any other comment on the record before we invite the jurors to join us?
I would only indicate, Your Honor, that in view of the more recent statement of Mr. Cordoba, to which Mr. Bailey refers, and I'm familiar with it, the real issue is Mr. Cordoba's credibility, and I think we should turn our attention to that and get on with this in a professional manner.
All right. It would thrill me to death if counsel would apologize to each other for the rather high level of vitriol yesterday.
Although I cannot say, Your Honor, that substantively speaking, the record, the evidence, and the information we had did not support the fundamental belief that we have a witness here who is not to be believed, who has no credibility.
Ms. Clark, forgive me for interrupting you, but given the state of the record as we know it today, given the level of the comments yesterday, which were not appropriate, I think it would be appropriate to begin this session by both sides acknowledging going beyond the bounds of professional conduct. In the heat of battle, I understand, and that we all agree to conduct ourselves professionally today. And I only ask that of you first because you're standing and talking to me. I'm going to ask the same of Mr. Bailey as soon as I hear from you.
And I do.
All right.
No, I'm serious. No, I'm sorry, Your Honor. I'm not going to be facetious. I do mean that. I really do. I don't like to engage in that sort of exchange. I think it is, I think it's unseemly. I think it's bad for the entire profession. And I do extend to Mr. Bailey my apology for the extreme nature of the exchange yesterday. I don't anticipate that happening again. And I think that we will all, from this day forward, conduct ourselves as professionals, seasoned professionals that we all are.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Mr. Bailey?
I, without hesitation, apologize for what I have found as an unwarranted comment directed at Ms. Clark, and that was that her eyesight and memory were deficient. Very plainly, that was unfair, since her eyesight is excellent and her memory has proven to be the same. My apology, most profound apology, is directed at the court. I've been doing this for 40 years. I was caught off guard with that accusation. The reaction was less restrained and certainly less professional than it should have been. And the thing that pains me the most is any criticism that has been directed at the court because of conduct of counsel. In my view, you're one of the finest trial judges I've ever had the privilege to appear before, and I think that criticism is unwarranted, and to the extent that I caused it, I do apologize.
Thank you, counsel.
May I join in that, Your Honor? I was not even aware of criticism being leveled at the court. If that is the case, I really would like to take this opportunity to indicate that we, from the prosecution, do not share in that view at all. We extend our most sincere apologies for any ill reaction that was caused by our conduct yesterday to the court. It was certainly unwarranted, unfair, and unjustified.
Well, counsel, I appreciate that thought. However, that's why I get paid the big bucks. All right, let's proceed. Deputy McNair, let's have the jurors.
We wait with the jurors so that the record is clear. The people do not intend to call Max Cordova. He is off our witness list as far as we're concerned.
All right. Please be seated. All right, Detective Furman, would you resume the witness stand, please? Let the record reflect that the jury has now joined us, all of our members, that Detective Furman is again on the witness stand under cross-examination by Mr. Bailey. Good morning, Detective Furman.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Detective, you're reminded you were still under oath. Mr. Bailey, you may conclude your cross-examination.
Detective Furman, do you recall that yesterday I indicated a certain area of the audience and asked you if you saw anyone there that you knew? Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
And did you see anyone that you knew?
That I knew?
Yes. Yesterday.
I know people, yes, in the audience.
No. Someone
Yesterday?
Someone that was connected with the preparation of your testimony.
No, I didn't recall, no.
Did you see anyone when you looked out yesterday, not here today, who was connected with the preparation of your testimony?
No, sir.
You did not?
No.
Do you know a Dr. Mark Goulston?
It's a different name than I heard yesterday. Overruled. Excuse me, counsel. Objections?
Objection has been answered.
Item 4. I heard a different name. Overruled.
I know a Mark. I don't recall of Mr. Goldstein.
Goulston, as I get it.
I still don't, sir.
And who is Mark?
I believe he is a doctor.
Psychiatrist, is he?
I'm not sure if he's a psychologist or a psychiatrist.
Okay. And under what circumstances have you seen him?
I've seen him in the DA's office.
Was he present during the grand jury session?
No, I don't recall him being there, no.
Has he talked with you at all about being a witness?
No.
You've never had any conversation?
Yes.
What have you talked about?
We didn't talk. He just said, "You're doing a good job. Keep it up."
Did you talk to him before you testified?
No, not at all.
And he's had no conversation with you at all about the manner of your testimony except some words of encouragement after the fact. Is that the way you leave it?
Yes, sir.
Did you recognize him when I pointed to him yesterday? Sitting next to Mr. McGinnis?
Assumes facts not in evidence.
Did you see me point yesterday in this direction?
I believe he pointed, yes, sir.
Right, indicating the back row of the seats reserved for counsel and the audience.
Mr. McGinnis is the landmark since he always sits there. I believe the man was sitting next to Mr. Joe McGinnis. That's where I was pointing. Mr. McGinnis, Detective Furman had his hand up, and he's the tall gentleman right in here.
Yes, sir.
Was Mark Goulston sitting there when I asked you the question?
Objection.
Oral.
I did not notice him, no.
You didn't notice him.
No.
How many times have you seen this man, Detective Furman?
4 or 5 times.
Okay. Detective Furman, how did you call in the license plate of the vehicle that turned out to be Kalen's on the morning of the 13th?
Police radio?
Is that called a rover?
Yes, sir.
Is that something you carry on your belt?
No. You could, but in plain clothes, it's very difficult, so you usually just take it out of the car and hold it.
Okay. Did you have it with you that morning?
At different points I did, yes.
Right. Did you have it with you when you were in talking to Cato in his bungalow?
I don't believe so, no.
Did you have it with you when you went out to look for the source of the noise?
No.
Do you have any communications equipment with you at that time?
No.
Detective Furman, is there a police radio code where certain words are used to indicate letters of the alphabet, as there is in aviation and the military, for instance?
Yes, sir.
What's the police word for N?
Nora,
V,
Victor,
N,
Nora,
H,
Henry.
I.
You put me on the spot. Oh, it's Indio in the military. I'm having a... Ida.
Okay. Does NVN have a meaning to you?
No, sir.
Do you use that on the radio at all?
No, sir.
I mean the phonetic letters, Nora, etc.
Oh, the phonetics, if I'm running a license plate such as that?
No, no. You said V is represented by?
Victor?
All right. Do you ever use the term Nora Victor Nora when talking to other officers on the radio?
Why would I do that?
Do you ever use the term Nora Victor Nora talking to officers on the radio?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor, until the other matters are settled.
All right. Redirect. Ms. Clark?
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Furman, I'm going to direct your attention to your state of mind and knowledge at the time you stepped out the front door at Rockingham. That means, and by that I mean after you placed Cato Kalin at the bar and then walked out the front door to go out to the south pathway. At that time, sir, the first time you walked out to the south pathway at 360 North Rockingham, did you know the time of death for Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown?
No, ma'am.
Did you know whether Mr. Simpson had an alibi for the time of their murders?
No.
Did you know whether there were any eyewitnesses to their murders?
No.
Did you know whether anyone had heard voices or any sounds or any words spoken at the crime scene at the time of their murders?
No, ma'am.
Did you know whether Cato had already gone up the south walkway before you got there?
No.
Did you know whether any fibers from the Bronco would be found on that glove that you ultimately found at Rockingham?
No.
And did you know the cause of death?
No.
I have nothing further.
Mr. Bailey? All right, Detective Furman, I'm going to release you from further testimony today. However, you are still subject to recall. You are ordered not to discuss your testimony with anybody except your own attorney and the attorneys from both sides or their investigators. Do you understand the order, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much. Your excuse, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Clark? I'm sorry.
Maybe have 72 hours on
About 48. All right. Detective, part of the court's order is you agree to return within 72 hours of being notified. Do you understand the order?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And you'll give the court plenty of notice.
Yes, sir.
All right. Ex-witness.
Thank you. People call Lieutenant Spangler.
Please do. On the way, Mr. Jordan.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. camera that's about to go out of the courtroom. There are stairs. Well, you remember Steve Trott? Look where it got him. I'd bet he could. All right, Ms. Clark.
You swear that the testimony you may give in the cause now pending before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat and witness stand and state and spell your first and last names for the record.
My first name is Frank. My last name is Spangler. That's S-P-A-N-G-L-E-R.
Ms. Clark.
Sir, can you please tell us what you do for a living?
I'm the commanding officer of West Los Angeles Detective Division. I'm a lieutenant of police for the Los Angeles Police Department.
And were you so employed on the date of June the 13th, 1994?
Yes, I was.
And did you respond to the scene at 875 South Bundy on that date, sir?
Yes, I did.
At some point between 2:30 and 3 a.m., do you recall going to an area of the crime scene where you were able to look through a fence and at the body of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, could you please cut the feed? This is People's Exhibit number 46. Two, please.
I'm going to ask you to look at your monitor, sir. Do you recognize the location shown in this photograph, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is the location?
The location is 875 South Bundy.
Do you see the area that I indicated earlier, a walkway along the north side of the fence of 875 South Bundy where you walked?
Yes, I do.
Can you please direct? I'm going to ask you to watch the arrow, direct the arrow to the location where you walked
How do I do
along
that?
the north side. You're going to see it in a minute.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to just
Tell the arrow where to
okay. Move it to the west. No, that's north. No, that's
no.
south. Vertically on the screen.
There we go.
There you go. That would be the general area up in there in the shadow of where that tree is.
All right, thank you.
There's a concrete walkway up in there.
Can you please mark that? And the initials? Ask that this be marked Peoples. 46. We have so many letters after the numbers, I have to catch up. 46B.
All right, 46B. Mrs. Robertson, 46B.
Your Honor, this is People's Exhibit number 43E, people in H or men cut.
Showing you this photograph, sir, please look at your monitor. Can you tell us if you recognize the location you've described to us in this photograph?
Yes, I do.
The fence that is shown behind the body of Ron Goldman, can you tell us whether or not that is the fence that you walked up and looked through, behind which there's that concrete walkway you indicated?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you know where you stood in relationship to the body of Ron Goldman?
I would have been on the north side of the fence, looking through the fence, and about parallel with where his pants line would be on his back.
And when you made this observation, sir, who were you with?
Initially, Detective Phillips.
Ron Phillips?
Yes, ma'am.
And did something draw your attention in particular as you looked at the body of Ron Goldman from the other side of the fence, the north side of that fence?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was that?
I could see an injury on his lower back, appeared to be on the left side, the way he was laying.
I'm going to ask you again to try and direct the arrow to the fence that we're talking about, behind which you stood.
Take it up to the fence itself. You see that dark band behind the fence? Right in there. Now, I stood further down to where it looks like there might be a tree trunk down in that area, right in there.
All right, if we could mark that. Okay, and you would have been on the other side of that fence, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
People's 43E sub 1. Maybe we just make it 43F.
So mark. I'm sorry, never mind?
We can't make it 43F because 43F is another photograph. So
Right. E sub 1.
E sub 1.
But they'll be provided to the jury in order.
Yes.
All right.
After you made that observation, sir, from that location with Detective Phillips, what did you do next?
I walked back out into the street on Bundy, walked over to what would be the east curb down near Dorothy, and had a conversation with Detective Phillips.
Now, the wound that you saw on the body of Ron Goldman, sir, did you form some opinion as to the nature of that wound?
Yes, ma'am.
And what was that?
It looked like it might have been a gunshot wound to me.
Now, you were talking only about the wound on the back, is that it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so do you recognize the intersection shown on this photograph?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is it?
Dorothy and Bundy.
Okay. Can you tell us which street is Bundy?
You see the sign with the curving, the street sign with the curve on it?
Yes.
The street would be Bundy, and Dorothy would be the street that the blue cars sort of turned around on there.
Okay, so you indicated that you walked back out from that North Gate area with Detective Phillips, and you went to the east side of Bundy. Would that be the side of Bundy indicated by that yellow sign with the curving arrow?
Yes, ma'am.
You spoke to Detective Phillips for a while?
Yes, I did.
At some point, did you see Detective Furman?
Yes, I did.
And did he come over to you?
Yes.
Did you have a conversation with him?
Yes, I did.
And after you had that conversation with, what did you share with him? What information?
I had discussed the injury that I had seen to the male victim's body, and indicated that, in my opinion, it could possibly be a gunshot wound.
Just the one that you saw in the back?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
And then I asked him to accompany me over to look at it.
So what happened next?
He accompanied me over. We walked back into the pathway the exact same way that I had been there earlier, and shined a light on the victim, and Detective Furman looked at the injury.
Did you walk all the way back to the same position you'd been in earlier, behind the north gate, the north fence, with Detective Furman?
Detective Furman was in front of me, so I was a few feet further east than I would have been the first time, but we were there together. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did you see him walk to the same location you had gone to?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did he do in that location, sir?
He shined his light onto the male victim's back, illuminating the area of the injury that I observed, looked at it for a few moments, walked back with me back out into the street at Bundy, and expressed his opinion that that did not look like a gunshot wound to him, that it looked like possibly a cut.
He said possibly a cut.
Yes.
Okay. Now, were you able to see his hands as he walked to the North Gate area where you had previously been with Detective Phillips and walked back out?
Yes, I could.
What was in his hand, sir?
A flashlight.
Anything else?
No, ma'am.
Did he leave your sight at any point when he went to the North Gate area, North Fence area, examined Ron Goldman, and came back to you?
No, ma'am.
And at that point, when you both came back out, where did you stand?
We walked back over to the east curb of Bundy, just north of Dorothy.
At that point, sir, do you recall what kind of flashlight Detective Furman had with him that night?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind was it?
A black pen light.
May I see?
Mrs. Robertson?
Showing you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 1055. Do you recognize what I'm showing you, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
What is that?
It's a mag light.
And how does that compare in similarity to the flashlight that was carried by Detective Furman on the night or early morning hours of June 13th, 1994?
Looks to be the same to me.
After that point, sir, did Detective Furman re-enter the crime scene?
No, ma'am.
How do you know that?
I stood on the east side of Bundy, just north of Dorothy, until the arrival of robbery homicide, and no one went back into that crime scene.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Mr. Bailey?
Lieutenant Spangler, what time did you arrive there that night?
I believe I arrived approximately 2:30 in the morning, sir.
So you were there rather shortly after Detectives Furman and Phillips arrived at 2:10.
That's my understanding, yes.
And did you learn soon after your arrival about their having arrived at 2:10?
I don't believe I made that inquiry at the time, but that is my understanding, yes, sir.
What was the first thing you remember after arriving at the scene?
Talking to Detective Phillips.
Okay, where was Detective Furman?
Detective Furman was standing to the rear of 875 South Bundy in the alleyway.
Okay, and where were you?
I had walked around to the alleyway and met Detective Phillips and talked to him, sir.
Can you tell us where you went after your arrival, what you looked at?
Yes, sir. Detective Phillips and Sergeant Rossi spoke to me briefly, and then Detective Phillips escorted me into the condominium via the rear garage.
And did you view the crime scene from the steps, front steps?
I stayed inside the condominium. I did not go outside onto any steps, sir.
Okay. And did you ever enter the crime scene from Bundy?
Yes, I did, sir.
When was that?
Detective Phillips, after taking me through the interior of the condominium and showing me some things from the doorway, took me back via Dorothy to the front of the location, and he illuminated a pathway through some plants that were just south of the sidewalk where the female victim was lying, and we approached it from that position, sir.
Okay. And can you recall what you did after that?
Yes, sir, we walked back out into the street of Bundy and walked north to the pathway that I described and walked in and looked at the body of the male victim from that perspective, sir.
And that was at what time?
I arrived at 2:30, and by 2:50, we had made all those observations. So over a period of 20 minutes, we were in the condominium, out at the front, and back over on the east curb of Bundy.
And by 2:50, you had been up to the body, noticed what you thought was a gunshot wound, and gone back and done the same with Furman, correct?
No, sir. Furman, the time that I went up with Furman was a few minutes later, sir.
How many?
I would estimate just after 3 in the morning, maybe 3:05 max.
As I understood it, you came back with Phillips to
Yes.
the corner,
Yes, sir.
spoke to Furman, and then took him up to look at the wound.
I'm sorry.
What time did you and Detective Phillips go look at the wound?
That would have been about 2:45.
Okay. And how much time elapsed between the viewing with Phillips and the viewing with Furman?
10, 15 minutes.
And where was that? I understood from your
I
direct
didn't hear the
testimony.
question, sir.
I understood from your direct testimony that you walked down, told Furman what you'd seen, and took him back without any break. Did
No,
something
sir.
happen in between?
No, sir. Furman walked over to me. Furman walked from around back behind the condominium out to my location on Bundy, and then we had our conversation. I had discussed my observations with him, and then I walked over with him. There was a period of time when I was standing out on Bundy by myself because Detective Phillips had gone to get Detective Roberts and Detective Furman.
What did Detective Furman say to you when he first encountered you on that occasion?
That's not the sequence that occurred. I was speaking, and I asked him. He didn't ask me.
Did he say anything to you other than
Sure.
to respond?
Oh, yes, he said, sure. When I asked him to walk over with me, he said, sure.
What I'm asking, Lieutenant Spangler, is whether or not Detective Furman said anything unrelated to the alleged wound in the body to you about the case at that time.
No, sir, he did not.
Did not, made no comment.
No, sir.
Okay. Do you know at what point Detective Furman was writing his notes? In other words, was it before or after, if you know, you took him up to look at the wound?
I do not recall seeing him writing any notes, sir.
Well, you weren't, he has testified that he wrote notes in the house. Were you aware of that?
He was not in the house with me, sir.
Okay. Was he in the house after you were there at any time?
I never saw him in the house.
when he walked up to you and Phillips following your observation of Mr. Goldman's body? Where was he coming from?
I later learned from Detective Phillips that he had been inside the house, sir.
Okay,
And I believe that's where Detective Phillips found him.
all right. Well, now his notes say possible gunshot wound, GSW. Did anyone other than yourself ever suggest that the laceration on Goldman's body was a gunshot wound, if you know?
I do not know of anyone else that made that observation, sir.
Okay. And you say that Detective Furman, upon viewing the wound, thought that it looked more like a cut,
Yes, sir.
such as would be inflicted by a sharp instrument.
Yes, sir, that's fair.
All right. Now, the notes that he wrote say gunshot wound, but do not mention cut. Do you know why that is?
No, sir, I've never seen the notes.
Okay. How long after that was it that Detectives Phillips and Furman were notified that the case would not be theirs, if you know?
How long after what?
After his encounter with Furman in the body.
Okay, your question is, how long after Furman and I viewed the body?
Yes.
The decision that robbery homicide was going to handle?
Yes.
Okay, decision was made before he and I viewed the body together. I'd made the decision when Detective Phillips and I were standing out on Bundy after he and I had viewed the bodies, and that would have been roughly 10 minutes to 3, sir.
And what, if anything, did Phillips do?
Phillips left me, walked around to the rear where Detective Roberts and Detective Furman had been, and brought them back to the front where I was standing.
Did he go in the house?
He was out of my sight, sir. I don't know. I later learned that Detectives Roberts and Furman apparently were inside the condominium, so I can surmise that he did, but I don't have personal knowledge of that.
And he brought Furman back with him? Is that the way it happened?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, had you learned at that point that a single glove had been located that might be connected with the murders?
I saw it, sir.
Okay. Did you direct anyone to see if there was another glove around, since they normally come in pairs?
When I was looking at the crime scene, I illuminated the area with a flashlight, and there was never any other glove there. There was only that one that I could see by both an oblique illumination of the crime scene and a horizontal illumination. I only ever saw the one, sir.
Did you look around the body?
Yes, I did.
All right, where?
From two perspectives, actually three, excuse me. From the doorway inside the condominium, you could look down and have a limited view. From the south side of the bodies when we walked through the planted area, and then from the north side of the bodies when we walked up on the outside of the fence. I looked at it 3 different angles.
All right. 2 of the angles, you were within the enclosure that is now called the crime scene. Is that correct? If you consider the fence and the gate to be an enclosure.
I never entered inside the gate, if that's a question you're asking, sir.
Okay. Well, review them again, if you will, because that's not clear to me without
Okay, sir.
putting a picture up
Yes,
as to
sir.
where you were standing. Time
Yes, sir.
1?
Time one. Time one was standing in the doorway of the condominium inside
Oh, okay.
the house.
You couldn't see any glove from there, could you?
Don't recall seeing a glove from there, sir.
Okay.
Time 2 was from just south of the walkway where the female victim was lying. Time 3 was from the north side, outside the fence, at the residence that's immediately north of 875 South Bundy.
Did you look anywhere else on any other occasion?
Yes, sir.
Where?
I looked on sidewalks, I looked in the street, I looked on the lawn, and as I walked, I looked to make sure you don't step on anything or disturb anything,
Sure.
that sort of thing. Yes, sir.
All right. Now, back to my original question. Did you ever ask if another glove had been seen or direct anyone to look for one?
I don't recall making that specific request, sir.
You never wrote a report of any of these matters, did you, Lieutenant?
No, sir, I have never written a report on any of these matters.
So you are now, I take it, you never testified about this matter either, have you before?
No, sir, I've never testified in this matter.
So you are relying totally on your memory at the moment, or your memory and the reports of others?
Independent recollection and recall, sir.
Okay. My understanding is that you returned from the third viewing of the crime scene with Detective Furman.
No, sir. I returned from the third viewing of the crime scene with Detective Phillips to South Bundy.
Fourth, then.
When Detective Furman and I went up there, that would have been a fourth time. That's correct, sir.
A fourth time?
Yes, but,
Okay.
yes, sir.
You returned at about 3 o'clock?
About 3:05, I would think.
Tell the jury, if you can, everything you did for the next 2 hours.
For the next 2 hours, after viewing the crime scene with Detective Furman,
Yes.
Or do you want to look at, why don't you review item 4? Mr. Bailey? Lieutenant, you can answer the question.
I stood on the east side of Bundy, just north of Dorothy, and the only time that I left that position was when I walked over to look at the dog.
Sorry, I didn't catch the last.
The only time I left my position, what we were doing is we were waiting for robbery homicide to arrive. And I walked over and looked at the dog. That was about it.
Looked at the dog?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is the Akita?
I don't know the brand, but or the breed, excuse me, but but it was a pretty good sized dog, yes, sir.
Did the dog have a leash on it when you saw it?
I seem to recall it was a rope.
A rope?
Yeah, I think it looked more like a rope to me than a leash, yes, sir.
Around his neck, dragging?
No, I believe he was tied to something, a street pole or a
Oh, okay.
tree or something like
The
that.
dog was tethered the only time you saw him?
Yes, sir.
Okay. About what time was that?
About 3:15.
Now, other than that one excursion to see the dog, did you remain at the position you showed us in the prior photograph, the intersection of Bundy and Dorothy, from 3 until the detectives left at 5?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And were you still there after they left?
Yes, sir.
You recall them leaving?
Yes, sir.
When you saw Detective Furman that night, was he wearing a coat at any time?
Yes, sir.
And when was that?
When I first arrived,
And did you see him later without a coat?
yes, I did.
When was that?
Just shortly after 3 o'clock, he had it off by the time he and I walked up to the front, to the north side of the bodies.
Okay. When you were with Detective Furman, you saw him shine the light, a replica of which is before you,
Yes, sir.
on the body of Ron Goldman.
Yes, I did.
Did you see him poke around or shine it anywhere else or make any other investigation in your presence?
No, sir.
Okay. So that as I understand it, he walked up, shined the light on the body where you directed him to look, and came out.
Yes, sir.
He has said 5 seconds. Would that sound right to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that is when he said to you, I don't think it's a gunshot wound. I think it's a cut.
Objection.
What's the ground? Overruled.
I'm sorry. Did I misquote you? I understood that Detective Furman had disagreed with your analysis and substituted his own.
Well,
How did he put it?
Well, he's kind of sort of politely, but he pointed out to me that that was one of the reasons I was a lieutenant and they were the homicide investigators, because it didn't look like a gunshot wound to him.
Was he suggesting you'd been benched?
Well, he just suggesting that he had a different opinion, I think.
But Detective Furman was never bashful about expressing his opinions, was he?
No, sir.
Now, can you tell us from 3 to 5 a.m. where Detective Furman was?
until, I believe it was Detective Lang or Van Natter, and I don't recall which one it was, arrived, he was with me.
How long was that?
That was from the time that Detective Phillips brought them back around from the back of the building until, gosh, almost 4 in the morning, sir.
Okay.
And from that point, Detective Phillips and Detective Furman were talking to one or both of the homicide investigators, and I believe Lieutenant Rogers had arrived, and they were talking to Lieutenant Rogers, and we're walking around the vicinity with them, showing them various things that they had seen earlier.
Was there any talk during that period about possible suspects, Lieutenant?
Yes.
Was Mr. Simpson's name mentioned?
No.
Was there a suggestion of some other suspect?
Excuse me, sir, let me clarify if I may.
Yes.
When you say was his name mentioned?
As a
not
suspect.
As a suspect, that's what okay, that was my answer then.
It was pretty well understood that the female decedent was Nicole Brown Simpson, his former wife, was it not?
There was some doubt when I arrived, and part of the process of my walking through and seeing and discussing with Detective Phillips and Sergeant Rossi was to make that determination because it was going to be my decision whether or not we handle it or Detective Robbery Homicide Division handle it. And I wanted to satisfy myself, but there was a period of time, approximately 3:45, 3:50 in the morning, I became convinced that it was almost certainly her.
Do you mean 2:45 or 2:50?
I mean that I was becoming more convinced. The more I saw, the more convinced I became.
You just said 3:45 to
I'm sorry,
3:50.
I misspoke. I meant 2, sir. I'm sorry.
I thought, okay.
Yes, sir.
So there wasn't any question bandied about after that point about the identity of the female victim, was there?
I don't recall any discussion.
You would hardly permit detectives to go notify Mr. O.J. Simpson that his wife had been murdered unless you were sure that that was true. Isn't that so?
That's a fair assessment. Yes, sir.
Had you received any special instructions as to how Mr. Simpson should be notified in this case?
Yes, sir.
And from whom?
From Detective Phillips.
And he told you that someone else had made a request of him. Do you know who that was?
Yes, sir. It was Commander Bushy.
Was it your decision to bring in robbery homicide alone, or had you been instructed to do that if it turned out that the victim was Mrs. Simpson?
I'll have to explain that to you, but it was my decision. The chief made a recommendation, but I'm the commanding officer on the scene, and it's my responsibility to make the decision, and it was my decision.
His recommendation, however, preceded your decision, did it not?
Yes, it did, sir.
And was identical with your decision, was it not?
I'm very grateful to him for having suggested that. Yes, sir.
Yes. In retrospect.
Yes, sir.
Did you, when you walked through the house, notice a list of phone numbers, including Mr. Simpson's?
No, sir.
Did you notice a telephone with a dialer on it that said Daddy?
No, sir.
Did you know that 2 children had been taken out of the house?
I was informed. Yes, sir.
And did you know that Mr. Simpson and Mrs. Simpson had 2 children? Had you known that?
No, I did not know that.
Was there any talk in your presence by any of the detectives about any difficulties Mr. Simpson might have had in 1985 or 1989?
Not in my presence, sir.
Did Detective Furman ever discuss that subject with you?
He never did, sir.
When you talked to Detective Furman and then walked with him up to the north side, as we call it, of the enclosed area that has been described as the crime scene, did he tell you that he had been there before?
No, sir.
Did he mention anything at all?
No, sir.
Do you recall, Lieutenant, that there is an area of heavy foliage immediately outside the crime scene?
Yes, sir.
Did you personally carry a flashlight with you?
Yes, sir.
Did you go through that area?
What do you mean by go through it? Did I walk through it?
Foliage.
Did I walk through it?
Or search through it?
Yes, shine the light and look through, yes, sir.
When did you do that?
When I had walked up with Detective Phillips.
Tell me exactly where it was that you shined your light.
Both to the south of the sidewalk and to the north of the sidewalk, from the curb going west all the way up to the fence, and then when we walked around inside the area. I tried to shine it all over the area as best I could.
Did you leave the sidewalk as you walked by the east boundary of the fence, or simply looked from the sidewalk with your flashlight?
I stayed on the sidewalk.
Okay.
The pathway that runs from the east to the west is what I'm referring to as a sidewalk now, not the public sidewalk. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about both.
Okay. And in fact, I did look at both with a flashlight, yes, sir.
Okay. But you stayed on the concrete. I think that's the easiest way to frame it.
Yes, sir, I did
You
not
walked
step
north
off
on
the...
concrete and west on
Wait.
concrete.
Both of you, let him finish asking the question before you start answering, Lieutenant.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Bailey, please let him finish his answer before you start asking
I
the third
apologize,
question.
Your Honor. I'm afraid the witness may share a common lineage as a Marine. You served
U.S.
in the
Army,
military?
sir.
What's that?
Command Sergeant Major, U.S. Army, sir.
U.S. Army?
Yes.
Oh, well. Pardon me. Mr. Darden apparently doesn't know his uniforms. He told me you were a Marine. When was the first time, Lieutenant Spangler, that you recited for anyone's benefit your 2 trips up to look at Goldman's wound? Do you remember the first time you talked about that?
Yesterday.
Thank you.
Ms. Clark?
Lieutenant Spangler, is it common for police officers to carry flashlights at crime scenes?
Especially at night, yes, ma'am.
And what is the importance of having a flashlight at a crime scene?
To aid your vision, to allow you to identify and see potential items of evidence.
And would a flashlight also illuminate where you're walking?
Yes, it would.
And is it important to see where you're walking in a crime scene that contains potential evidence?
Yes, ma'am.
And why is that?
So you don't disturb the evidence or just possibly destroy it.
And so is it common practice, in fact, always done in a nighttime crime scene, that police officers use flashlights to illuminate where they walk?
It's my practice.
Now, as I understand it, sir, before, according to your testimony on cross-examination, by the time Detective Furman came out to you, before you went with him to that north fence, he had already written notes. That was already done?
It's my understanding, but I did not personally see that.
Sustained.
This is
It's already, the question's there, the answer's there, the objection is that the preceding questions have been leading. Proceed.
You testified on cross-examination, sir, as I understand it, that Detective Phillips brought Detective Furman out, to the best of your knowledge. Okay. Tell us what was your knowledge about where Detective Furman had been before you saw him and spoke to him on the east side of Bundy.
Well, I had seen him and Detective Roberts at the rear of the location in the alleyway. And when Detective Phillips left me, he walked around that direction and he returned with them. My understanding was that they were inside the condominium, but I did not personally see that.
Okay. And then, what was your understanding about what Detective Furman was doing inside the condominium before he came out with Detective Phillips to see you on the east side of Bundy?
Beginning their investigation.
Okay. Was it your understanding that he was writing notes inside the condominium at that time?
Yes.
And it was after that point that you had your conversation on the east side of Bundy, and what did you do after that?
After Detective Phillips, Detective Furman, and Detective Roberts returned to my location,
Yes.
I made my observation, or discussed my observation of the injury, and I asked Detective Furman to accompany me over to look at it for his opinion.
Now, the observation that you made, the conversation you had about that, was that with respect to the one wound on the back, or with respect to all of the wounds on the body?
That one wound, ma'am.
Okay. Did you have a conversation with Detective Furman about any of the other possible wounds on the body?
No, I did not.
And when you discussed with him that one wound that you saw on the back, what did he tell you about his belief concerning the cause of that one wound?
He told me that he did not think it was a gunshot wound, that he thought it was a cut.
Okay. What was the language? Was he definite or was it a possible cut?
He was kind of, I want to call it laughing at me, but he was of the opinion that I didn't know what I was talking about, I think. He seemed to be fairly certain in his mind that it was a cut.
What, was this an insulting conversation, sir?
Well, I certainly hope not, ma'am.
Oh, okay. How did you take it?
I did not, I was not insulted.
Were you laughing?
I deferred to his expertise, though.
Were you laughing at the time?
Yes, I did.
You indicated, sir, that you were glad that you had made the decision to refer the case to robbery homicide,
Yes, ma'am.
and you were grateful for the suggestion from Lieutenant Frankel?
Chief,
Chief Frankel.
yes.
Forgive me.
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And why is that, sir?
Because I have, counting Detective Phillips, a four-man homicide unit, and I don't have the resources to adequately investigate a crime that would of this magnitude. I mean, I have something like 38 detectives in my entire division. We'd have had to shut down everything and handle nothing but this case. Couldn't do it.
And then, just so it's clear, sir, based on your knowledge of the observations made at the crime scene, 875 South Bundy, how many gloves were there?
There was only ever one glove there that I saw.
Has it ever been brought to your attention that anyone, whether it was the first officer or any other officer after him at the scene, saw anything other than one glove?
One glove.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Bailey? All right. Lieutenant, you're excused from further testimony at this time. However, subject to recall, please don't discuss your testimony with anybody else except for the attorneys or their investigators. Do you understand the order, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you very much, Lieutenant. You're excused.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a brief recess at this time to change court reporters. Please remember my admonition to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't allow yourself to be communicated with regarding the case. And do not conduct any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you. Ask you to step back into the jury room, please. All right, we'll stand in recess for 15. Additional boards, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
3 additional boards. I've shown those boards to Mr. Shapiro.
All right, are we ready to proceed? I would just suggest that we put it someplace other than right there up against the jury rail. All right, Deputy McNair, let's have the jurors, please. Let the record reflect that we've been rejoined by all the members of our jury. Mr. Darden, would you do me a favor and grab the mag light that's there? Thank you. All right, counsel, who is your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor, the people call Mr. Darrell Smith.
All right, Mr. Smith, come forward, please.
Right hand, please. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in class now pending before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Please be seated and state and spell your first and last names for the record.
First name is Darryl, D-A-R-R-Y-L. Last name Smith, S-M-I-T-H.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Smith, would you just pull the microphone a little closer to you?
Sure.
Please, thank you, sir.
How's that? Oh, okay.
Mr. Smith, can you please tell us what you do for a living?
I work as a freelance cameraman or director of photography.
And were you so employed on the date of June the 13th, 1994?
Yes, I was.
And on that date, sir, did you have an assignment for a particular company?
Yes, I did.
And what was that?
I was hired through Gold Coast Communications to work for Inside Edition.
Okay. So on that day, were you out to shoot footage for Inside Edition?
Yes, I was.
And where did you go?
After leaving Inside's main headquarters, we went over to what's now known as Nicole Brown's condo, and then also over to OJ's home.
On Rockingham?
On Rockingham, yes.
Now, when you went to Nicole Brown's condominium, was that the location of 875 South Bundy?
Yes, it was.
And there's some footage I'm going to show you. Before I do, let me ask you, sir. The footage that will be shown, have you viewed that in my office with me?
Yes, I have.
And explain to me how that was done?
Yes, I have.
Does the footage show the events and the order, the chronological order that they occurred?
Yes, it does.
So that the first shot that we're going to see, that's what occurred first in time,
Yes, I believe so.
and then every shot thereafter?
Every shot thereafter, yes.
In order, thank you,
In,
Ron.
in order.
Are there pieces cut out of the footage?
There are pieces cut out. The footage has been edited, but it tells a story basically in chronological order.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Clark, let me inquire. You've reviewed this, is that correct?
It's already been marked and shown, Your Honor.
All right, refresh my recollection. Is the feed appropriately cut on these?
Yes, it should be cut, and this is the tape that was shown with Detective Lang.
Fine, okay.
101? People's 101, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Smith, there's a monitor right there for you to
Right
watch.
here. Thank
Yep.
you.
Can we back that up? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right, do you recognize what's this footage, sir?
Yes, I do. Currently, we're across the street, as no cameramen were permitted to go across the street. They had us all basically stationed on the opposite side of the street.
Okay, so all of the news crews there and the cameramen were stationed on the east side of Bundy?
Basically, on the east side of Bundy, there were a couple guys across the street down towards, I guess that would be the south side, and they were making their way to the east side.
Okay. So then the crime scene tape shot, the shot of the crime scene tape coming down, that was the first thing that occurred
Yes, before any of this happened.
before any of this?
Right.
Indicating the police officer was lifting the cotton blanket.
And walking on the walkway?
Yes.
Now, where are you standing at this point, sir?
I'm standing across the street. Well, actually, I guess that would be the west side after the tape went down, and I'm pretty much standing on the grass.
On the grass? And can we run that through one more time, please? So while the crime scene tape was still up, sir, where were all the cameramen and the news crews and the media?
Well, the media that was there, a lot of media had left and I guess headed over towards Rockingham, but the media that was there at that time was basically across the street. When the tape went down, I just basically instinctively went across the street and stood on the grass, because then you can approach a crime scene.
So the first time any cameramen were allowed to get close to the crime scene was after the tape came down?
After the tape came down, at the time, that I was there, we were all stationed across the street. And when the tape came down, again, that's when we were allowed to come over by the crime scene.
Do you recall how long you had been there when the crime scene tape came down?
Best of my recollection, about 30 to 45 minutes.
Ready? Okay. All right. Where are you standing when this part of the tape, if you could stop it here, when this part of the tape is being shot?
Across the street from the residence. I guess that would be the east side of Bundy.
Stop. All right. Now you see this kid roller skating down the sidewalk?
Yeah, I do.
Wait, whoa.
Scar, I'm sorry. First portion that Mr. Smith answered to was the officer who was rolling up to the crime scene tape.
Yes,
All right.
thank you. Okay, you're still across the street at this point, is that right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Stop, please. At this point, the crime scene tape, is this shot after the crime scene tape has come down?
Yes, this is.
And can you tell us, sir, where you're standing at the time this shot is filmed?
Approximately, I'm either right on the grass or right by the curb on the west side of Bundy.
So you're much closer now?
Yeah, I am.
All right, Director,
Okay.
it's like that the witness is referring to a portion of the tape where it appears that there is a child leaning over, rollerblading past the West Tech sign.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Okay. All right. Stop here. Can you back it up? Thanks. All right. At this point, sir, chronologically speaking, does this event occur after the child is rollerblading.
Yes.
And for the record, by this I'm referring to the portion of the tape where one officer is walking down the walkway, there's a bloody sheet on the ground, and there's another officer in the background walking in the same direction, both of them walking east on the walkway.
Yes.
Now, was there anything, we recall, as you testified earlier, we examined this tape in my office together on an earlier occasion.
Yes, we did.
Was there footage that you filmed between the little boy on the roller skates and these officers coming down the walkway that is not shown here?
Yes, there is.
How can you tell that, sir?
Basically because I shot a lot of it, and it's edited to where the important part was that he took the tape down, and the next important part was it was strange to see a child skating by, that kind of a scene. What transpired in between those would be close shots of officers and close shots, different shots, so that you can cut up and make a program with. So there are. I had the camera rolling at different times.
But the shots, are they still in chronological sequence?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. If you could tell us, sir, as we roll the tape now, we're going to roll it slowly, if there is another cut.
Okay.
Can you stop there? How close are you here, sir, when you're filming this shot?
I'm still pretty much on the grass.
Okay.
Yeah, on
Were
the
you able
grass, right at the edge of the on the grass, or right at the edge of the sidewalk.
Were you able to see that bloody sheet or blanket?
Sure.
Yeah. Did the blood on it still look wet or moist to you?
That I couldn't tell.
Okay.
I couldn't tell.
You saw the flies around it.
In my best recollection, all I pretty much saw is pretty much what you see here. I can't say I really remember flies, but
But if it's on the tape, then...
if it's on the tape, I saw it.
Yeah.
Basically.
Okay. Could you stop here? What were you trying to focus on here? Was there a particular, other than obviously the crime scene and there is blood, was there something that particularly you were trying to show that drew your attention?
The only thing here is to make sure I get a close-up shot of the white blanket with the blood, so that you can, if they chose to, they could cut to it and basically show it in more detail.
Do you see, sir, you're looking at the monitor, in the upper, I want to say the right-hand corner, kind of that, in the upper right-hand tile of this frame, and for the record, the frame I'm now describing is showing the blanket and the first step of the steps that go from the walkway up to the landing. What appears to be oh, thanks. Can you look at the screen, sir? And I'm going to look at the red dot
Sure.
that can you see it? The red dot that I'm using?
Yeah, I can see the red dot. I can barely
Okay.
make out the screen, but I can see the area that you're circling.
Okay.
In the
Is-
tile. Okay.
Do you recall seeing that spot? Does this,
Yeah, I do.
and what was that?
It's basically a large amount of blood. It's coagulated blood.
Okay, go ahead. Oof. All right, stop. All right, sir, I'm going to show you two photographs, one of which has been marked as People's 57, and one of which has been marked as Defendant's 1011. and ask you
Okay.
to look at these. Have I shown you these before, sir?
No, I haven't seen these before.
Okay. Can you tell me, first of all, sir, if those appear to be basically the same photograph, one larger than the other, one showing the logo and one in which the logo is blocked out?
Yeah, they are basically the same photograph.
And can you tell us, sir, whether or not these are still shots taken from the video that you filmed that we've just been looking at?
Yeah, they do look to be taken from video.
And if you could look at your monitor, sir, the frame that is now being shown, do these appear to be stills, the still frame from the video that you shot, the frame that's now being shown to you?
Yes, it does.
And so if what you shot and what is shown in this tape is all in chronological sequence, this particular shot, which is a still of which is shown to you in People's 57 and Defense 1011, occurred after the crime scene tape was taken down?
Yes. Yes.
Can you roll the rest? Thank you. Chris?
Mr. Cochran?
Good morning, Mr. Smith.
Good morning, Mr. Cochran.
Just a few questions, sir, if I might. You were the photographer on a program that was ultimately shown on Inside Edition, is that correct?
That's true.
And was the narrator of that program someone by the name of Joel Loy, L-O-Y-E?
I don't know who the narrator was, sir.
Did you see the show when it was ultimately produced?
No, I did not.
All right. As I understand it, then, what you do is you do your work at the scene there, then you turn it over to them,
Right.
then they then can edit, cut, and splice to put together a program, is that
Any way they choose.
All right. And so when we see it on television, it's not always in the same order in which you shot it, is that correct?
That's correct.
They have that option, is that correct, sir?
They do have that option.
Now, from what you've indicated to us, sir, you shot more film than we're seeing here today. Is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement.
Let's start at the beginning. What time did you arrive out at 875 Bundy on June 13th, 1994?
That would have been in the neighborhood of about 2 to 2:30.
2 to 2:30 in the afternoon?
Yes.
And when you arrived there, as I understand your testimony, the yellow perimeter was still up. Is that correct?
Yes, it was.
And were there still officers in and around inside the yellow band when you first got there?
Yes.
And would I be correct in assuming that you took some photographs or some video of the officers walking around in there?
Yes, you'd be correct.
In other words, your idea and your goal as are you called a videographer?
You can call me that, yes.
Well, I want to call you what you are.
Basically, when you shoot for Inside Edition, you are a news photographer.
Okay. So as a news photographer and you have an eye for the news, you're shooting and trying to get whatever might be relevant for the program thereafter. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, it is.
So when you arrived there shortly after 2 o'clock, I'd be correct in assuming that you started to shoot at that point. Is that correct?
Yes, soon after that.
And where is that film now that you shot that we're not seeing today?
That would have to be, that's the property of Inside Edition, so.
It was you turned it or sold it over to them?
I don't sell it over to them, I turn it over to them, they hire me for the day, they pay me my required fee.
For the day.
And it's their property.
All right, so the film is at Inside Edition, is that correct?
That's
as far
true.
as you know?
Yeah.
All right. And with regard to what you shot prior to the taking down of the scene, do you recall whether you saw police officers in and around that crime scene inside the yellow tape?
When I was shooting from across the street?
Yes, yes.
Yes, they were.
All right. And they seemed to be working in that area, were they?
Yes, they did.
Do you remember how many police officers were in there?
No, I don't.
All right, you have no recollection of that.
No, I didn't take count.
All right. When is the last time you saw the film that you shot prior to the crime scene being taken down?
I guess the last time, the total film or just this
Yeah, the
piece I'm
total
looking
film.
at now?
I'm thinking now about the film that when you first got there before they took the crime scene down. When did you last see that?
I'm sorry, could you?
Sure, let me ask you.
Yeah.
You came there shortly after 2 o'clock and you
Yes.
started to shoot at that point.
Right.
And I'm asking you now, when is the last time you saw that film that you shot before the crime scene was taken down?
That day.
All
That
right,
day.
so back on June 13th?
Back on June 13th.
You've not seen it since.
Not seen it since.
And how long would you say you shot before the crime scene was taken down?
Total tape time, I'd be unaware, but we were there approximately about an hour, 45 minutes, an hour, 30, 45 minutes to an hour.
You got there at what time?
I got there approximately right around 2 o'clock, 2:30.
Okay. And do you know what time the crime scene was taken down?
Not exactly, no. I would have, like I said, about 45 minutes after I got there.
If the crime scene was taken down between 3:30 and 3:45, would that seem to be accurate to you?
Yeah, that would be close.
Close. So if you got there by 2,
Well,
between 2 and 2:30, you might have at least an hour in, maybe an hour, a little
Right.
more. Is that a fair
Right.
statement?
yeah, that's the first.
And would I be correct in assuming that during this period of time, you shot as much as possible that you thought might be relevant during that time before the crime scene was taken down?
Yeah, I shot what I felt would be relevant to tell the story, sure.
And you shot that from across the street, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And what kind of a camera were you using or lens were you using at that point?
At that point, the camera would be a Sony 70IS with a 14-1 lens with a 2x extender.
That really clears it up for me. I'll tell you that.
Well, that's the
So I didn't ask that, didn't I? So this was a camera or lens that would allow you, I presume, to
Yes, it was.
zoom in. Is that correct?
Yes, it was.
So you get those close-up shots we saw.
Yes.
All right. And the last time you saw that film was on June 13th in the possession of Inside Edition, right?
Yes.
If we wanted that film of what took place before the crime scene was broken down, we'd have to go to Inside Edition?
If you want anything else besides what you're seeing today, yes, you have to talk to Inside Edition.
And how'd you get this that you're showing us today?
I didn't get this.
This came from Inside Edition.
It was given, next time I saw it, it was in Marshall Clark's office.
All right. So you had nothing to do with getting it.
No.
You were just the man who shot it. Is that
Yes.
correct? All right. I understand. And so there may be at least an hour of film that preceded the taking down of that yellow tape somewhere at Inside Edition, right?
I wouldn't say an hour, because that means I would run continuous.
All right.
Okay. But
How much?
there is more film, yes.
Okay. All right. And then at some point after perhaps 3:30, as you saw the crime scene being taken down, you then came across the street at that point and got a closer vantage point. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Do you recall whether or not when you were shooting during the period after 2 to the time the crime scene was taken down, how many different officers you shot or took pictures of during that period of time?
No.
Do you remember whether or not any of the officers that you took pictures of during that time frame were in plain clothes?
No, I do not.
You used the word "we" at some point. Were you being assisted by some other person when you were out there that morning?
Sure. I always take an audio man with me.
Okay, and who was your audio person that day?
That would be Jeff Watts.
Is he also freelance, or does he
He's
work?
also freelance.
All right, so you're both, you and Mr. Watts are then both hired by Inside Edition for the day.
We were both hired by Gold Coast, which places us with Inside Edition.
Okay. Now, what are outtakes?
What are outtakes?
Yes, what are outtakes?
Outtakes are basically what you use. They wouldn't be in order, but you would use to tell a story. They don't necessarily have to come from the original footage in which you're shooting. They can come from anywhere. It can come from a movie. You know, you're telling a story. There's an interview. You can bring a piece of a movie in, a piece of anything, and use it. Another word for outtakes is basically B-roll.
All right, you can just work it into the story,
Work it into
as
the
it were.
story.
Is that correct?
Right.
All right. And with regard to this Inside Edition show, altogether, how much would you say that you shot before the tape came down and after the tape came down, if you recall?
Well, I would probably, before the tape came down, I'd probably roll about around 30 minutes. I would say 20 to 30 minutes. Tapes usually run about either a 20-minute load or a 30-minute load.
Did you remember what you were using that day, a 20 or 30-minute load?
Inside generally uses, at that time they were generally using 30-minute loads.
And do you recall whether or not you used more than one tape prior to the yellow tape being taken down?
No, definitely not.
So it would all be on one tape
It
before?
would, before, yes.
Okay.
It should be on one tape.
And then afterwards, did you use another tape after the
Yes.
tape came down?
Oh, yeah.
And altogether that day, while you were at the scene, how many tapes did you use altogether, if you remember?
While I was just at the Bundy scene,
At the Bundy scene, yes.
I would say that it basically, it should have all fit on 2 tapes.
Perhaps 2 tapes?
Yeah.
That's
2
your best
tapes.
recollection now?
That's my best recollection at this point.
And we're talking about Bundy, the 2 tapes at Bundy?
We're talking about Bundy, yes.
Okay. The part that we saw here with the tape taken down, the little boy skating by on the rollerblades,
Right.
would that be on tape 2?
That I wouldn't have a recollection of.
You
It
don't
would
know?
either be on 1 or 2.
Okay. One of the 2 of them?
Yeah, it wasn't like a definitive stop and start
Okay.
at that point.
You, this white, was it a blanket or a sheet, if you were able to tell when you got over closer to it? What was that? That had been over one of the bodies?
Far as I could tell, it was basically what was covering some areas of the crime scene.
Right, and was it, I guess what I'm asking you was, did it appear to be a blanket or a sheet?
It appeared to be like a blanket.
And it was white in color, is that
It
right?
was white, yes, with a texture to it.
With some texture. Did you see what happened to that after, while you were there, the white blanket?
No, I don't remember seeing what happened to that.
Do you recall whether or not you shot some individual or officer moving that white blanket to some other place during the course of your 2 rolls that you shot?
Yes, there was some movement. The blanket was moved.
All right. And as you think back in your mind now, do you remember where it was moved to?
Basically, the only thing I can remember was it being moved in that general area in which it's placed on the tape
All right.
now.
Do you ever recall a time while you were still there that it was moved out of your sight, that white blanket?
No, I can't say that I do.
All right. The last time you remember seeing it, it was still there, is that correct?
The last
At
time
the
I
scene.
remember seeing it, yes, it was there.
Now, in addition to yourself, were there other cameramen out there shooting also at about the time that you arrived shortly after 2 o'clock?
There were some other cameramen out there. However, when the tape came down, I was the first one, or pretty much the only one, to just run across the street and start shooting.
Well, that's like a scoop thing, right?
Well, it's basically what I'm being paid for, is to cover the story, but not get in the way.
All right. So you were the first one to get across the street.
Yeah.
Before that, however, there were other camera persons there, is that right?
Yes, I did see some other camera
And
persons
did
there.
you know some of these people?
Actually, no. I can't recall.
Do you recall any other programs, such as you talked about Inside Edition and Gold Coast, I guess it was, the other programs who were out there competing for stories at that point?
The only thing I remember is, with regards to the media, is the satellite trucks that would roll by Channel 7 to KCAL. They would roll by and
local news
continue to
media.
look at the scene.
Local news media?
Local news media.
Right. And do you see them on occasion stop and shoot footage also, the local news media?
I did see one person from, and I'm trying to remember now, I believe it was 7, that was there
Yes.
for a little while, and then I believe they left. And as a matter of fact, I know they left and proceeded to Rockingham.
All right. When you saw 7, Channel 7, that's ABC, I presume.
Yes, that's ABC.
And do you recall the individual who was doing the shooting?
No, I do not.
All right. And was this at a time prior to the tape coming down?
Yes, this was. They were.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you arrived there after 2 o'clock, there were other news organizations who were already there when you got there. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, there were other media there.
All right. And you just can't recall who they were at this point? Or can you?
Not at this point. I mean, that ended up being from a day that just seemed like it was going to just be some normal, everyday quick shoot, quick pickup, to a media fest, basically.
All right. And by that you mean a media fest, you mean there were a lot of media?
I mean, a lot of media turned out later on in the day when we were at different places and stuff. So.
All right. From what you've indicated to us, at some point, you left Bundy at some
Yes.
point. And about
Yes.
what time was that, sir?
Leaving Bundy, I would say it had to be in the neighborhood around 5.
5. So you stayed at Bundy something maybe just a little bit short of 3 hours. Is that correct?
That would be correct.
And
2 to 3 hours, yes.
2 to 3 hours.
Yes.
And did you continue to shoot till the time you left?
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
And over that time now, if you stayed 2 hours plus, could you have shot more than 2 rolls if you're using 30-minute rolls?
Actually, probably not. While I am documenting things that are going on, I'm also being selective on which shots I'm taking. It takes time sometimes to see and to actually be creative in your process of how to tell a story or how to make sure it's ready for the editors to tell the story and the director or the producer to tell the story when they get back.
And was there a director or producer at the scene that day at all?
Sure, there was a producer there.
And who was the producer?
That should be Malcolm. Malcolm, I don't remember Malcolm's last name. Sorry, Malcolm.
Malcolm.
But- Sorry.
Malcolm. Okay, well,
You know, but
probably call in and tell us right.
oh,
Malcolm.
I wasn't thinking about that. I was
Okay.
just, but
Okay, but it's Malcolm, and he's a male.
yes, he is.
Okay, was he with you the entire time?
Yes, he pretty much dogged my every step.
Okay, well, all right. Now I'm sure call in, right? Did Malcolm, was Malcolm directing you as to what to shoot also?
No, I mean he'll have suggestions at a time and say, you know, let's make sure we get this, let's make sure we get that. But a lot of it is also we've worked together. They know I'm going to deliver, you know, what they need to tell the story. So if they see something special, they usually suggest it.
All right, so that we can make sure this is clear. There were at least 3 of you in your group, the audio man, Jeff Watts, Malcolm, the producer,
Right.
and you as the videographer, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And there's no log that you have written anywhere that would tell the exact time he got there, is there? Or is
There's a log when we checked in to Gold Coast Communications, and they wanted us there by 1:20. We checked in at 1:30. Then we proceeded over to Inside, which is about 15 to 20 minutes away.
Proceed over to where?
To Inside Edition.
Okay, and where is that located?
Inside Edition is located on Wilshire Boulevard. I don't know the exact address.
Okay, but how far is that from the Bundy location?
From the Bundy location, it's neighborhood of about 25 minutes, 20,
Yeah.
25 minutes.
You were at Inside Edition a short period of time, I presume.
Right.
Then you
We
went to Bundy.
basically went there to pick up Malcolm.
Okay, all right. And then ultimately, when you did leave after 5, did you go over to the Rockingham location?
Yes, we did.
Did you shoot footage there also?
Yes, we did.
And who has that footage?
Inside Edition.
You used some different tapes for that, I presume.
Yes.
Okay. When did you talk to when were you in Miss Clark's office? When did you have this conversation with her?
This conversation would have taken place about 3 weeks ago from this Friday, I believe.
In this building?
Yes, in this building. Your office is in this building, right? Okay. Yeah, it's this building.
Can't ask her.
Eh,
That's right.
oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah,
right.
in this building. Sorry.
No problem, sir. All right, well, thank you very kindly. You don't have nothing further.
Ms. Clark, anything more for Mr. Smith?
Very quickly.
Okay.
Mr. Smith, from the time that you got there and you began to shoot footage at Bundy, were you only filming the crime scene?
Basically the crime scene, and there may be a shot or two of anything about the neighborhood, because you want to show where everything's located.
Did you shoot any footage of neighbors that you spoke to?
We went up to a couple of homes to ask people and knock on doors, that kind of thing, to see if anybody knew anything. But generally, nobody was home.
Do you have any footage of that, talking to any neighbors that may have been there?
Okay. Again, I don't have any footage of that. That would be Inside Edition. They have all rights and everything to the footage. And we didn't get a chance to really talk to any neighbors before the crime scene, before the tape went down.
Okay. So was the crime scene tape coming down basically your beginning footage at Bundy?
No, there's a little footage before that, because I wouldn't know that the crime scene tape will be coming down. So I shot basically the area and what was going on.
Okay. Can you remember how much for how much time you were shooting before the crime scene tape came down? Approximately, I know it.
That's kind of, I really can't answer that. I mean, we were there shooting, knocking on some doors, that kind of thing. My best recollection could be 30, 45 minutes. We were all surprised when the tape came down. So.
So that 30 to 45 minutes before the tape came down, that was not just the crime scene that you were filming then? Is that?
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Cochran?
Sure.
We're abundantly clear here.
Yeah.
You did in fact shoot the crime scene, a portion of the crime scene, before that tape came down, right?
Yes.
Because you didn't know when the tape was coming down, did you?
No, I did not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is Malcolm British?
I'm sorry?
Is Malcolm British?
I think he is. Yeah, I think he is
Okay.
British. Yeah.
We're talking about the same person. All right, Mr. Smith, thank you very much for coming in. You're now excused.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Next witness.
The next witness, Your Honor, will be Detective Philip Van Adder.
All right.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the cause not only before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please proceed with the statements for your first and last name for the record.
My name is Philip Van Adder. Philip is spelled with one L. Van Adder, V-A-N-N-A-T-T-E-R.
Mr. Darden.
Detective, you are a member of the LAPD.
Yes.
How long have you been a police officer employed by the LAPD, sir?
26 years plus.
And you are Detective Tom Lang's partner, is that right?
Yes,
And you were his partner on the morning of June 13th?
that's correct.
Okay. Now, I would rather not discuss all of your assignments during the past 26-plus years, Detective, but what year did you join the department?
In January of 1969.
Okay. And were you assigned to patrol after that?
Yes.
What year did you first become a detective?
The last part of 1971.
Now, at some point, were you transferred to West LA Division,
Yes,
the same division we've been hearing about during this trial?
that's correct.
Okay. And during what time period were you assigned to West LA Division?
I went to West LA the latter part of 1975 and left there the first couple of months of 1979.
Okay. And were you a detective throughout your assignment to West LA?
Yes.
You never worked patrol?
No.
You never had any or performed any patrol function?
No.
And what is your current assignment, sir?
I'm a police detective, Los Angeles Police Department, assigned to Robbery Homicide Division, Homicide Special Section.
Now, you've watched some portions of this trial, have you?
Yes, I have.
Okay. You watched Detective Lang testify to some extent?
Some of his testimony, yes.
Okay. Not all of his testimony?
No.
You've been monitoring the trial, have you?
Yes, I have.
You are a co-lead investigator in this case. Is that right?
That's correct.
What time did you first receive the call requesting you to respond to 875 South Bundy?
3 o'clock the morning of June the 13th, 1994.
Okay, and who called you?
Lieutenant John Rogers.
Okay. Now, when Lieutenant Rogers telephoned you, did he advise you of the circumstances at Bundy as he understood them to be?
Yes.
What did he say?
Lieutenant Rogers told me that we were assuming the responsibility of a double homicide at 875 South Bundy, and that one of the victims was believed to be Nicole Brown Simpson.
And he told you that Nicole Brown Simpson was O.J. Simpson's ex-wife, did he?
Yes.
Okay. And I take it that you consider this a serious situation, that is the fact that there were two dead people on Bundy.
Well, I consider any homicide call that I go on a serious situation, yes.
Okay. Well, the fact that it involved Nicole Brown Simpson, did that make the situation seem any more urgent or important in your mind?
The only thing that triggered in my mind, that knowing that that there was a connection to Mr. Simpson, that there would probably be a lot of media, yes.
Well, at that point, that is when you heard that Ms. Simpson might be a victim, did you think in your mind that perhaps you should investigate the case differently than you would any other murder case?
No, sir. Every homicide case is important.
And so what time did you arrive at 875 South Bundy, sir?
4:05 in the morning.
And when you arrived, was your partner, Detective Lang, there?
No, he wasn't.
And when you arrived, where did you park your vehicle?
I parked my vehicle headed north on Bundy, on the east side of the street, south of Dorothy.
And were you greeted by any other detectives?
Well, I approached two detectives that were standing inside the intersection of Dorothy and Bundy.
Okay. And these two detectives, were you acquainted with them previously?
No, I didn't know him.
You never met them before?
No,
Okay. And you introduced yourself to these two detectives?
that's correct.
Okay. And what names did they give you at that time?
I introduced myself to Detective Phillips and Detective Furman.
And did you have a conversation with Detective Phillips and Detective Furman at that time?
Mainly with Detective Phillips. He introduced himself as the homicide coordinator of West LA.
Okay. So he was a supervising detective at that point, is that correct?
That was my understanding, yes.
He was Furman Sr.?
Yes.
And did Detective Phillips brief you on the situation at that time?
Yes, he did.
What did he tell you?
He told me that there was a double homicide at the location, that one of the victims had been identified as Nicole Brown Simpson, that two minor children had been removed from the residence and had been taken to West LA Division for safekeeping, and that he had previously spoken with Commander Bushy about a personal notification. At that time, I wasn't really too concerned about that.
Okay. And after you had this conversation with Detective Phillips, did he take you somewhere?
Yes, he did.
And where did he take you?
Well, I asked him to give me a brief walkthrough so I could acclimate myself to the crime scene after I informed him that we were assuming the investigation.
Now, this request of yours, that is for a brief walkthrough
Yes,
of the crime scene.
yes,
Is that routine?
absolutely.
Nothing extraordinary or unusual about your making that kind of request?
Nothing at all, no, not since I'm taking over the investigation of the crime.
Now, were you aware that Detective Phillips had been told earlier that morning that the RHD division was going to assume responsibility for the crime scene investigation?
I'm not sure I understand that. Was I aware that he had been told?
Yeah.
I would assume that because I had been told that we were taking the investigation by my supervisor, so I would assume that that had been relayed to him, yes.
Okay. And the fact that RHD would assume responsibility for an investigation, there's nothing unusual about that, is there?
Nothing at all, no.
Okay. Now, if you know Detective Van Adder, what is the responsibility, the investigative responsibility of the local detective unit in a situation like this, that is wherein the RHD division comes in and assumes responsibility for the investigation?
Well, they have the responsibility at the time that they're informed that we're taking over to maintain the security of the scene. However, upon our arrival, it's not unusual for us to ask them to assist us in the investigation to a point that we can handle it ourselves.
Well, once local detectives learn that RHD has taken over, should they continue to investigate the crime scene?
No, they shouldn't. They should only maintain the security and integrity of the crime scene.
Now, it took you approximately, what, 1 hour and 5 minutes to arrive at the scene, that is, after you received the initial phone call?
That's correct.
And so during that 1 hour and 5 minute period, these local detectives should just stand by?
They should maintain the integrity of the crime scene. That's correct.
How many homicide investigations have you been involved with during your stay at RHD?
Quite a few. At RHD, I would guess My overall career, I could probably give you a figure, probably over 200 I've been personally involved in. I've probably been at the scene of maybe as many as 500 to 600 homicides.
Okay. And in each of those situations where RHD took over, the local detectives always stood by until RHD arrived. Is that right?
That's correct. They maintain the integrity and isolate witnesses and things like that.
Now, you told us a moment ago that Detective Phillips took you on a walkthrough.
Yes.
Okay. Where did you and Detective Phillips go first? That is, after you left the intersection at Dorothy and Bundy.
Detective Phillips, we walked north on Bundy, and he took me to the south side of the walkway that leads to the front of the residence through the shrubbery. I stood back behind him a couple of feet, and he pointed out items in the crime scene to me.
Now, as you approached the crime scene from the front, were you carrying a flashlight?
Yes,
What kind of flashlight?
a 4-cell D battery flashlight, a long flashlight like that. I don't know the brand of it.
And how long is that flashlight? How many inches?
Oh, it's probably, I'd guess, 14 inches maybe.
Okay. And was Detective Phillips also carrying a flashlight?
As I recall, yes.
Okay. Now, you've told us that you've been to many crime scenes. When you approach a crime scene, are you careful not to step on things?
Yes.
Okay. And why is that?
Well, can I relate it to this crime scene?
Okay.
This was a very, very bloody crime scene. You don't want to contaminate the area. The area has been secured. So you're very careful, and you pick your route very carefully. Not only do you not want to contaminate a crime scene, I also have a lot of health concerns regarding being exposed to blood. So I try to be extremely careful to keep blood off from me.
And so you're shining that flashlight on the ground then, I take it.
Every place, that's correct.
And you're making certain that you don't step on any evidence.
Yes.
You saw Officer Risky testify,
Yes, I saw part of his testimony.
and Sergeant Rossi.
Yes.
And did you also watch them draw for us the path that they used as they approached the crime scene from the front?
I did.
Okay. Was that the same path you took?
I was taking the same path.
And when you left the crime scene at Bundy, after the initial walkthrough, did you go out the same way you came in?
Yes,
Okay, and why did you do that?
to maintain the integrity of the crime scene. That's trained and taught to officers by older officers that once a route has been determined into a crime scene, and normally that's done by the responding officers, once that area or that route has been determined and been walked on, then we attempt to use the same route to keep everything else as close to the way it was found as possible.
Okay, so I take it that you walked all the way up to the what, gate area or mailbox area?
Well, yeah, I was a little east of the south corner of the gate, back in the foliage.
And did you view the bodies at that point?
Yes,
Using your flashlight?
yes,
Could you see Nicole Brown?
yes.
Could you see Ron Goldman from that perspective?
I could see him, but not well.
Did Detective Phillips point anything out to you at that time?
Yes, he did.
What did he point out to you?
He illuminated a plant area at the feet of the male victim, Ron Goldman. And he illuminated a white envelope that was lying there on the ground, as well as what appeared to be a blue knit cap and a leather glove, a man's leather glove.
And how long did you remain there at that specific location?
Very short time.
And you backed out of the crime scene?
That's correct.
Okay. Where'd you go at that point?
Detective Phillips showed me the front area. There appeared to be canine prints that had come from the area of the crime scene down the walkway. And he instructed me about those, told me to be careful, and he walked me south on the west sidewalk of Bundy toward Dorothy. As I walked south, he pointed out several canine prints that appeared to be prints in blood that headed south on the sidewalk. He took me to the intersection of Dorothy, and we turned west on the north sidewalk of Dorothy, and the canine prints were fading out at that point, were getting very light. And he walked me to the alley, which would be the north-south alley west of the front of the residence, to take me to the rear of the location.
Okay, and so did you approach the rear of 875 South Bundy?
Yes, I did.
Is there a driveway in the rear?
There's an apron. I don't know that you would call it a driveway. It would be more of an apron to a garage off the alley.
Okay. Was there a vehicle parked on that apron?
Yes, there was.
Okay, what kind of vehicle was that?
It was a Jeep Cherokee, black in color.
Okay, and you've seen photographs of that Jeep Cherokee, I take it.
Yes, I have.
Would you like to see it again?
If you want me to, I will.
Now, did you walk past the black Jeep Cherokee?
First, when I was taken back there, I was directed to the north side of the vehicle, which would have been the driver's side. It was parked headed east on the apron. And Detective Phillips pointed out what appeared to be a blood drop on the pavement, as well as some change. And then from there, we walked back around the Jeep and entered the rear of the location into the residence.
So you entered the garage,
Through the garage into the residence, that's correct.
and as you entered the residence, did you then begin to climb the stairs?
Yes,
And was there a small banister, rather, to the left of the stairway?
yes, there was.
Did you notice anything on the stairway?
Detective
Yes.
Phillips pointed out a ice cream cup sitting on at the bottom of the banister.
Okay, and did you seize that ice cream cup at that particular moment, Detective?
I did not know.
Did you examine the ice cream cup?
I looked at it, I visually looked at it for a short period of time.
Or did you stop and look at it, or did you just look at it as you walked past it?
I looked at it as I walked past it.
Okay, what did you notice about the ice cream, Detective?
Really not too much other than it appeared to be melted ice cream.
Did you consider this ice cream to be a critical piece of evidence in this case, Detective?
At that point?
Yeah.
No.
How about at any other point?
No, I've never considered it to be a critical piece of evidence.
So I take it you walked up the stairs, is that correct?
Yes, I was led up the stairs into the kitchen area, through the kitchen to the front door of the location.
Now, as you approached the front door, did you notice whether it was open or not?
The door was open.
Okay. Now, was it just you and Detective Phillips at this point?
Yes,
Did you see anyone else in the house at that time?
there was no one in the house.
And did you exit the front door?
Yes,
Okay. You walked out onto the pathway or landing?
yes.
Now, prior to walking out the front door, did Detective Phillips caution you? in
Yes,
any
he
way?
did.
Okay. And what did he say to you at that time?
He told me that he had observed what appeared to be blood shoe prints, as well as blood drops, leading west from the crime scene toward the alley, and told me to be careful not to step on any of those.
You still had your flashlight in your hand?
Yes,
Did you walk out the door?
yes.
And which way did you go at that point?
I stayed to the south portion of near the wall of the residence on the outside. The porch light was on, giving a little illumination. And I walked up east to just before you start down the stairway to where the victims were, used my flashlight and observed the scene.
And were you better able to see the scene at that point?
Much better, yes.
And how many gloves did you see then?
One.
Did you ever see two gloves at this location?
Not at Bundy, no.
Okay. Did Did any officer ever tell you that he or she saw 2 gloves at that location?
No.
Now, as you approach the bodies, and this is after you exited the front door, did you see any bloody footprints on the landing?
On the landing?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
I saw the first prints. They were pointed out to me on the landing, and then I observed what appeared to be molded prints on the steps coming up, as well as between the 2 victims.
What do you mean when you say molded prints?
That would be where there was blood there, and a person stepped in the blood, and it leaves a molded impression of the bottom of the shoe in the blood itself.
Okay. And you saw this molded footprint on the steps?
I saw it on the steps as well as between the 2 victims that appeared to be molded also.
You've been watching the trial, right?
Yes, I have.
Why approach the scene a second time at all?
Are you talking about my second approach on the landing?
Yeah.
I need to acclimate myself to the crime scene to know what evidence I have and where the case is going to lead me, so I can instruct the people that I call out to assist me on what I want recovered, how I want it protected, and what I want done with it.
Who, in fact, is in charge of these homicide investigations? Is it you, the detective, or is it the criminalist?
It's the detective.
And who directs the criminalist?
The detective.
And if you call out a fingerprint person, who directs the fingerprint person?
The detective.
And if you call out the coroner, who tells the coroner when they may remove the bodies?
The detective.
Does the coroner have the right to just walk into your crime scene and remove bodies anytime they like?
Absolutely not.
It's a good time to break, Your Honor.
Here's so. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take our recess for the morning session. Please remember my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Do not conduct any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you. Do not allow anybody to communicate with you regarding the case. We will stand in recess until 1:30. Detective Van Adder, you're excused till 1:30, sir. All right, let the record reflect we've now been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Another great tie and suspender combination there. All right, Detective Van Adder, would you resume the witness stand, please? Good afternoon, Detective Van Adder.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
You're reminded you're still under oath, sir. Mr. Darden, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Detective Van Adder, when we left off, you had just told us that the coroner had no authority to enter your crime scene until such time that you gave them your consent or permission. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
But you do have a duty to notify the coroner. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And we have seen on the Alamo section from the Health and Safety Code and LAPD Special Order Number 21.
Yes.
Okay. You're familiar with those?
Yes.
And they indicate that you should notify the coroner immediately. Is that right?
That's what they indicate, yes.
Okay. Well, you've been a detective 20 years, right?
Actually, over 20 years.
Okay. And in the real world, and from a practical point of view, what does immediate mean in the context of you as a detective conducting a homicide investigation?
Overruled.
Immediate to me means when it's practical for them to respond to the scene to remove the bodies. There's no need for them to be there before then, and that would be after I or my partner had finished the scene.
But you do make a first call or first call notification.
That's correct.
Okay, and what is the purpose of that first call or first notification to the coroner?
A first call is made so they can set their deployment and their manpower so they don't have people standing at scenes for hours waiting for the detectives to finish their work before they can remove the bodies.
And so I assume then that after you make that first call or notification, that you also make a subsequent call or second call.
That's correct, yes.
Can I have one moment, Sean?
Certainly.
Second call or second notification to the coroner, what is the purpose of that?
The second call or second notification is made when we deem it time for them to respond to remove the bodies from the crime scene. That's the purpose of the second call, to tell them to actually respond to the scene.
Are all crime scenes alike?
Absolutely not. Each crime scene is an experiment in one. They're all unique and they're all different.
And I take it that the evidence you might find at any particular crime scene varies.
Completely, yes. It would be a very easy job if they were all the same.
When you conduct a homicide investigation, do you... We'll strike that. After you exited the front door at Bundy, and after you viewed the bodies from the landing, did you follow the bloody footprints that you described to us earlier?
I was led along the footprints, yes.
Okay. You had your flashlight with you?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And you were led by Detective Phillips, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And he also had a flashlight?
Yes,
And you saw the bloody shoe prints?
I did.
Did you see anything else of interest to you as a homicide investigator near those bloody shoe prints?
Yes.
What did you see?
I saw 5 blood drops that led from the area of the bodies along the left side of the shoe prints to the mouth of the, or out to the end of the walkway out on the apron of the driveway.
You saw 5.
There were a total of 5 that I saw, yes.
Now, what was the significance that you attached to these blood drops, if any?
Well, they appeared to be not associated with the crime scene itself. It appeared to me that the bloody shoe prints were being left by the suspect as he was exiting west, and that he was either bleeding himself or was carrying an object to his left that was dripping blood. So I either had an injury or I had him dropping blood from some object.
Some object or some injury to the left of that person's body?
That's correct.
And you say you followed the shoe prints and the blood drops, rather?
That's correct.
And they went outside, or rather you walked outside the rear gate?
That's correct.
And did you see any blood drops outside the rear gate?
Yes, there was one on the apron of the driveway just northwest of the rear end of the vehicle there.
Okay. And there is a point where the apron to the driveway meets the pavement in the alley, is that right?
Meets the asphalt, that's correct. It goes, the apron is cement, and it ends at the alley, which is asphalt.
Did you see any drops of blood on the asphalt in the alley?
No, I did not.
Did you see any bloody shoe prints in the alley?
No.
This fact, the fact that you saw no blood on the asphalt in the alley, what significance, if any, did you attach to that observation?
That indicated to me that most likely a suspect had entered some mode of transportation, possibly a vehicle, at that point and had left the scene. That's why there were no further blood drops.
Now, after your arrival at the Bundy crime scene, were you ever given any documents at all?
Yes.
What documents?
I was given Mark Furman's notes that he had completed before my arrival.
And who gave you those notes?
Detective Phillips.
And you've seen Detective Furman's notes on the Alamo here in court, have you?
Yes, I have.
Are those the same notes Detective Phillips gave you?
Yes.
And did you maintain possession of those notes?
That's correct.
And do you recall what time it was that Detective Phillips gave you those notes?
Would have been shortly after 4:05, my arrival. We stood and talked for approximately 5 minutes, and during that period of time, he gave them to me.
Now, as you walked down the walkway at Bundy and exited the rear gate, did you notice anything on the rear gate at all?
Yes, I did.
What did you notice?
I noticed what appeared to be blood wipings along the upper rail of the gate, and what appeared to be blood drops on the bottom rail of the gate.
And were these blood wipings and blood drops pointed out to you by Detective Phillips?
They were.
You've told us that you have visited approximately 500 homicide scenes, is that right?
Approximately, yes.
And on how many occasions, on how many of those visits did you wear booties over your shoes?
I don't think I ever have. I can't recall ever doing that.
Well, did you think at the time that given the suspected identity of the victim in this case, or one of the victims, that perhaps you should do things different or differently from the way you've done them in the past?
The only thing that's different with this case than any other case I've ever handled, and the only more importance that I see in this case than any other murder that I've handled, is the press coverage. Any murder I've handled has been very, very important to me.
So you did in this case what you've done in all the other cases?
Absolutely.
Okay. What did you do after you exited the rear gate at Bundy?
Excuse me. Myself and Detective Phillips walked back to the front to the intersection of Dorothy and Bundy, and I awaited the arrival of my partner, who hadn't arrived there yet. I didn't want to start the investigation without him, so he could be acclimated also.
Okay. So you waited for Detective
Yes, that's correct.
Lang?
Yes.
Okay. And what time did you arrive back at the intersection at Bundy and Dorothy?
I would say approximately 4:15 to 4:20.
Okay. And so how long did it take then? That is, how long did it take to do that walkthrough?
10 minutes at most, probably.
And when you arrived back at the intersection at Bundy and Dorothy, was Lieutenant Rogers there?
Yes.
And who was he?
He was my immediate supervisor.
And was Lieutenant Spangler there?
Yes.
And was Captain Dial there?
Yes.
And who is Captain Dial?
Captain Dial is the patrol commander for West Los Angeles Division.
And were there other police officers there at the intersection at that time?
Yes.
Now, at some point, did Detective Lang arrive at the location?
Yes.
And what time did he arrive, if you recall?
4:25.
And did you introduce Detective Lang to Detectives Furman and Phillips?
I did.
And was there any indication at all at that time that Detective Lang had ever met Detectives Phillips and Furman?
None whatsoever.
And did you ask Detective Phillips to do something at that time?
I did.
And what did you ask him to do?
I asked him to give my partner, Detective Lang, a walkthrough of the scene also, and then we would meet back out front.
And did he do that?
That's correct.
And did you wait for Detective Lang?
I did.
And did he, at some point, come back to the front of the
Yes.
property?
Yes.
What happened next, Detective?
We conferred in the intersection. I discussed it with my partner. Detective Phillips was there. Again, Detective Phillips had notified me earlier And he again brought up the subject that he'd been ordered by Commander Bushy to make a notification, a in-person notification. My concern at that time was I realized that this would most likely be a very heavy media event because of the implications of the people involved. I had been earlier told that there were 2 minor children in custody. And my concern was to make a notification, make a disposition for the children to get them out of the police station, to meet Mr. Simpson, realizing that at some point myself or my partner was going to have to interview him. So we made a decision to make a notification at that time.
Now, we have seen the LAPD policy regarding notification of next of kin in homicide cases.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, you're familiar with that policy.
Yes, sir, I am.
And the policy does apply to next of kin, is that right?
That's correct.
Now, Mr. Simpson was Miss Brown's ex-husband, right?
That's correct.
So does he qualify as next of kin?
Not to the victim, but not to the female victim. However, again, we had 2 small children in custody that he was the father of that we needed to make a disposition on. So I thought it appropriate that he be notified.
Now, you told us earlier that you had worked in West LA Division some years ago.
That's correct.
I guess you left West LA Division in 1979, was it?
Yeah, I believe it was either February or March of 1979.
Well, during your stint as a detective at West LA Division, had you ever visited 360 North Rockingham?
I don't think I think that was the first time I was ever on the street, was on June the 13th.
Okay, so you weren't familiar with that area then?
Not at all.
It wasn't Detective Furman's idea that you should go to Mr. Simpson's home?
No.
What was your rank at the time, by the way?
Detective 3.
And Detective Lang's rank was what?
Detective 3.
And Detective Phillips?
Detective 3.
And what was Detective Furman's rank?
At that time, he was a Detective 2.
So you outranked Detective Furman.
Yes, that's
In
correct.
fact, 3 of you outranked Detective Furman, is that right?
That's correct.
So what did you do after you made the decision to notify Mr. Simpson of Nicole Brown's death?
During the conversation, Detective Phillips had informed us that Detective Furman had been to the location on a prior incident back a number of years. And he asked Detective Furman, or we asked Detective Furman, if he could lead us up to that location. And he inquired, I believe he inquired from Officer Risky at that point to get the exact address and the directions up there.
Okay. And at some point, did you prepare to leave for Rockingham?
Yes.
And was Detective Lang to go?
Yes.
But a decision was made as well to take Furman and Phillips, is that right?
That's correct.
Why should 4 detectives go to Rockingham to notify Mr. Simpson?
Well, we knew we had a situation, again, we had 2 small children there that needed to be done with to get them out of the police station. It was our intention, myself and my partner, to go up there and meet Mr. Simpson so we could know him and ultimately interview him regarding this murder. And we believe that Phillips and Furman may be able to assist us in the disposition of the children and handling of the situation.
Well, you told us a moment ago that you wanted to interview Mr. Simpson at some point.
At some point, yes.
Okay. Well, did you consider him a suspect at that time?
No.
Did you have any notion at all at that time that...
I didn't know who the suspect was. Anybody could have been the suspect at that point.
Now, we have heard testimony that Commander Bushy ordered Detective Phillips to notify Mr. Simpson personally.
That's correct.
Okay. Did you speak to Commander Bushy?
I did not.
Okay. There is a chain of command in the LAPD, is that correct?
Yes.
A commander outranks a Detective 3, doesn't he?
Well, there's enough steps between him and I to make a ladder, yes.
Okay. And when you are given an order by a commander in the LAPD, do you have a duty to follow that order?
I have to follow that order, yes.
You and Detective Lang got into one car and drove toward Rockingham?
Yes, we entered my car. I drove.
And Detective Phillips and Detective Furman, they entered another car?
That's correct?
Now, prior to leaving Bundy, did you tell someone that you were leaving?
Yes.
Who did you tell?
Lieutenant John Rogers, my supervisor.
Okay. And was Captain Dial nearby when you told Lieutenant Rogers you were leaving?
Captain Dial was in the immediate vicinity. However, I don't think she was standing in the tight group where I was talking to him.
Okay. And was Lieutenant Spangler standing nearby when you told Lieutenant Rogers you were leaving?
Yes,
Okay. I believe you mentioned a moment ago that Lieutenant Rogers is your supervisor.
that's correct.
He is a supervisor within the Robbery Homicide Division?
He was the lieutenant in charge of the Homicide Special Section. That's correct.
Okay. And so he's perfectly capable then of conducting a homicide investigation?
You're putting me on the spot. I would say probably not at that point.
I'm not going to ask you why you say that, but at any event, he is capable of maintaining the crime scene.
Oh, absolutely. He's a supervisor.
Okay. When you spoke to Detective Phillips about going to Rockingham, did you ask him how long it would take to get there?
Well, I don't think no, I don't think I talked about that. I believe I realized from the location we were that it was not too far away, but I didn't know exactly where because I was told it was off Sunset Boulevard.
And did you have any inclination or notion as to how long it would take to get to 360 North Rockingham?
No,
Did you expect to be gone for several hours?
no.
How long did you expect to be gone?
A very short time. We had a crime scene to do.
You expected to go to Rockingham and introduce yourself to Mr. Simpson and return?
Make a notification and return to the crime scene. That's correct.
But that didn't happen, did it?
It certainly didn't.
How long did it take you to drive from Bundy to Mr. Simpson's home on Rockingham?
Approximately 5 minutes.
Were you speeding?
No,
Did you run any stoplights or stop signs?
no.
Have one moment, Troy. I'm sorry, how long did you say it took to drive from Bundy to Rockingham?
Approximately 5 minutes.
Do you recall the route you drove?
Yes, I do.
Can I have one moment, Troy? Hmm? Okay. Do you recall the streets, the route that you took?
Yes.
Okay, can you describe that route for us, please?
Yes, we drove north on Bundy to Sunset Boulevard, and I believe Bundy turns into Kentner right before Sunset Boulevard. We turned left west on Sunset, proceeded to Rockingham, and turned right north on Rockingham.
Okay. Did you ever drive on San Vicente at all?
Yes, there's a very short jag on San Vicente where you make a left turn off of Bundy, and then I believe it's Kentner that is actually the extension of Bundy that you turn left onto San Vicente and right immediately onto Kintner.
Okay, let's back up for a moment. You drove north on Bundy.
North on Bundy to San Vicente Boulevard.
Okay, hold on. Let me write this down. Okay, north on Bundy to San Vicente.
That's why we have the court reporter.
I can read my writing. I can't read hers. Okay, north on Bundy to San Vicente.
That's correct.
Okay. And when you drive on to San Vicente, did you go west or east?
We turn left west on
Okay.
San Vicente.
All right. And did you say the next street was Kintner?
I believe that's where Kintner starts, and it's a very quick right turn north into Kintner.
Okay, and then you go up to Sunset.
That's correct.
And what do you do when you reach Sunset?
You turn left west onto Sunset.
And what is the next street that you turn on?
Rockingham.
And what do you do at Rockingham?
You turn right north.
Which car was the lead car?
Detective Phillips' vehicle.
And at some point you arrived at 360 North Rockingham.
That's correct.
Okay, and you said it took, what, approximately 5 minutes to drive there?
Yes.
You were driving north on Rockingham when you reached the property?
Yes.
And is there a gate at 360 North Rockingham? That is a gate located on Rockingham.
Yes.
Did you drive past that gate?
Yes.
Now, as you drove past that gate, what, if anything, did you notice?
Well, as I proceeded north in the 300 block of Rockingham, right before you get to Ashford, I observed a white Bronco parked at the east curb just north of the Rockingham gate.
And was there anything unusual about that Ford Bronco that caught your attention at that time?
Well, yeah, there were a couple things. It appeared to be the only vehicle in the area that was parked on the street, and it appeared to me to have been hastily parked on the street with the back end a little farther out than the front end, as if someone had quickly pulled in and just stopped and got out at that point.
And when you noticed the vehicle and the manner in which it was parked, did you consider this significant?
Not at that point, no.
Did you drive past the Bronco?
Yes.
Did you note the license plate on the Bronco at that time?
No.
Did you or your partner, Detective Lang, attempt to run the license plate at that time?
No.
What happened next, Detective?
I pulled into the Ashford intersection and parked at the south curve of Ashford, just east of Rockingham.
And what time in the morning was this?
Approximately 5:10 in the morning.
And was it still dark at that time?
Yes.
Can I have one moment, Charlie?
Certainly.
Let me show you a photograph previously marked as People 63. Detective Van Anna, do you recognize the intersection depicted in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
If you will, please, can you direct the arrow to that point or location at which you parked your vehicle?
The vehicle, if you could move it straight to the right there on the picture. Farther. Right in that area, right there.
If you'd mark that spot with an arrow. I hope he's on TV doing that, Your Honor. Okay. All right. Thank you. Now, where did Detective Phillips and Detective Furman park their vehicle?
Directly in front of my vehicle.
Okay. What is it, 63? Detective, there is a gate depicted in the background in that photograph, is that right?
Yes, sir, there is.
Okay. Is that the Ashford gate?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, from your parked position here in the photograph, can you see the Ashford gate?
Can I put my glasses on? It may help. I can see where the gate is supposed to be, but it's very hard to make the gate out itself.
I take it that you and the other detectives got out of your police vehicles?
Yes, that's correct.
And did you approach one of the gates?
Yes.
Which gate did you approach?
We walked to the Ashford gate.
And that would be all four of you?
That's correct.
Okay. And once you reached the gate, did you ring the bell at all, or buzz it?
Yes. In fact, two or three of us rang the bell
Now,
at different times.
okay. Could you tell if anyone was home as you stood outside the Ashford gate ringing the buzzer?
It appeared to me that the house could have been occupied. There was a light on in the bottom toward the south side of the house, and there also appeared to be a light on up in the second story of the home. It appeared that there should be someone there, yes.
Did you notice if there were any vehicles parked in the driveway area in front of the house?
Not at that point. I think it was a little after that I noticed vehicles parked in the driveway.
Did you ring the buzzer?
Yes, I did.
Did Detective Phillips ever ring the buzzer?
Yes.
How about Detective Lane?
I believe he did also.
And did Detective Furman ever ring the buzzer?
I don't recall him doing that.
When you rang the buzzer, could you hear any noise emanating from inside the house?
Yes.
What noise did you hear?
I could hear a ringing coming from the interior of the home.
So you would push the button and then you would hear ringing inside the house?
That's correct.
And how long did you and the other detectives remain at that gate pushing the buzzer?
Probably 10 to 15 minutes.
Did you ever receive a response from anyone inside the house?
No.
Did the lights remain on?
Yes.
Now, at some point, did you notice vehicles in the driveway?
Yes, I did.
At what point was that?
Probably within 10 to 15 minutes, I walked around and looked at the Bronco parked there. Detective Furman was already at the Bronco, and I looked down the Rockingham Gate driveway to see if there was a way I could get to the front door to knock on the door, and that gate was secured. I observed two vehicles parked in that driveway.
Okay. Let's go back for a moment. At some point, you left the Ashford Gate, is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and where did you go at that time?
I came out to Rockingham and walked down to Rockingham toward the Bronco.
Was Detective Furman with you initially, that is, when you began ringing the buzzer?
Yes.
He left at some point?
Yeah, all of this is occurring at one time. While we're ringing the buzzer, to put it in chronological order, while we're ringing the buzzer, I observed a West Tech sign on the west side of the Ashford Gate. I was aware that Detective Phillips had a cellular phone, and I asked him to make a phone call to to the security company to see if we could get a phone number to the residence. He walked to the vehicle,
Police vehicle?
his police vehicle, to get his telephone. I walked out toward the intersection. At the same time, Detective Furman walked with us back toward the police vehicle. I stood there in the intersection as Detective Phillips was making phone calls. Detective Furman walked down toward the vehicle. I could see him at all times.
You could see Detective Furman walk toward the Bronco parked on Rockingham?
Yes.
And at some point, you also walked toward the Bronco located on Rockingham?
That's correct.
And why did you walk toward the Bronco?
Again, I wanted to see, regarding the Rockingham gate, if there was a possible way to get to the front door, to knock on the front door, or see what I could see from that perspective of the home.
Your Honor, we have printed a copy of the photograph just shown on the Almo. May it be marked People 63D?
Right, 63D as in David.
I'm sorry, you said you walked toward the Bronco.
That's correct, to get a perspective of the home and the area, to see if there was a way I could get to the front door from the Rockingham gate.
Okay. Who reached the Bronco first? You or Detective Furman?
Detective Furman,
And was he in your view at all times?
yes,
And as you reached the Bronco, did he say anything to you?
yes,
Did he point something out to you?
yes.
What did he point out to you?
He pointed out a stick on the parkway and some articles that were in the cargo area of the vehicle.
And did you pick that stick up?
No.
How close to the stick did you come?
I observed it from maybe 3 or 4 feet away.
And did you look through the rear of the Bronco?
I did.
And what did you see inside?
I noticed a shovel, what appeared to be a piece of plastic in a pocket area along the passenger's rear cargo area, and what appeared to be a white cloth or something in the back of the car.
Now, what significance, if any, did you attach to the stick lying on the parkway there?
Well, at that point, it just didn't seem to fit the area and the location. It was a foreign object in a very manicured neighborhood.
And what significance, if any, did you attach to the shovel located in the rear of the Bronco?
None at that point.
And what significance, if any, did you attach to the, you said you saw a plastic bag?
What appeared to be, yeah,
Okay.
folded up plastic.
And did you consider that significant at all at the time?
At that moment, no. While I was looking in, there was a package in the back also that was addressed, I believe, Orenthal Productions.
Okay.
And I knew Mr. Simpson's name was Orenthal James. I knew that, so I believed at that point that possibly this was his vehicle. I asked Detective Furman to do a Department of Motor Vehicle check on the vehicle.
Now, up to this point, had you noticed any blood on the door?
No.
Well, what happened after you observed the shovel and the bag and the package in the rear of the Bronco?
I looked down the Rockingham driveway, I saw vehicles, and I walked back toward the intersection of Ashford, where I observed a West Tech unit that had pulled up and apparently had been stopped by Detective Phillips.
What happened next?
I walked up to that location. Detective Phillips was having a conversation with the West Tech officer, was requesting a telephone number for the location.
At some point, did you notice a blood spot
Yes.
on the Bronco?
Yes, Detective Furman came to me and told me that the vehicle was registered to the Hertz Corporation. While I was standing in the street, he walked back to the Bronco, was there a very short time, and walked a little way back up the street and called me to come back to the Bronco.
And did you go over to the Bronco?
I did,
About what time was it that you went to the Bronco the second time?
approximately 5:30 in the morning.
And did you view a spot on the Bronco?
He pointed out a spot above the driver's door handle that appeared to be a reddish brownish type stain that looked like blood to me.
Have one moment. Detective, showing you what has been marked as People 62. The board labeled Bronco exterior. If you can grab the pointer and step off the witness stand for a few moments, please.
Mm-hmm.
Detective, directing your attention to 62A, the first photograph here. Does that depict the location of the Bronco when you first saw it?
Yes, that's where the Bronco was parked when I first saw it when I drove up the street.
Okay. And that is near the driveway on Rockingham, is that correct?
Just north of the driveway, yes.
You told us a moment ago that you did at some point see two vehicles located, or parked rather, in the driveway behind the gate.
That's correct.
Okay. Was there room on the driveway or in the driveway to park this Bronco?
There was a lot of room to park on the grounds, yes.
Directing your attention to 62A, which would be the middle photograph. What's depicted in that photograph?
That's criminalist Dennis Fung apparently pointing out the spot above the door handle while it's being photographed.
Now, Dennis Fung is the criminalist, is that correct?
That's correct.
It's his responsibility to collect biological evidence,
Yes,
blood, for instance.
yes.
And at some point that morning, did you ask someone to call for a criminalist?
Yes.
When?
Approximately 5:30, when it was pointed out to me by Detective Furman, there was a black and white that had just responded to the location. I asked them to make a call to get a criminalist rolling to the location.
And why did you want a criminalist at the location?
Well, at that point, realizing that I had just left a very brutal murder scene, that this was in a very close proximity to that murder scene, that it appeared there should be people at the home there, and we were getting no response. We had also learned that there was supposed to be a live-in maid at that point within the residence. I become concerned that this could be another crime scene. This could be an extension of the Bundy crime scene where someone could have been killed or injured or hurt there. And I knew that if, in fact, that was the situation, that I was going to have a criminalist there.
So you called for one.
That's correct.
Now, had you already called for a criminalist for the Bundy murder scene?
No, I hadn't.
Or why not?
Because it was my intention to make a notification at the Rockingham location, return immediately to the Bundy scene, and at that point I would have called for my scientific people.
Okay. Did you ever discuss with Detective Lang the possibility that you could have Mr. Fung handle both crime scenes?
Did I discuss that with you?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think that was a given. Once we had a criminalist there, we had what appeared to be an extension of the Bundy crime scene once I seen what was there, so the criminalist would logically handle both crime scenes for the preservation and booking of the evidence.
Did you expect the criminalist to handle or rather gather any evidence other than blood located on the exterior of the Bronco?
At that point, I didn't know there was other evidence there.
This was all you knew about then, that is the blood on the side of the Bronco.
Exactly.
Now, what did you want the criminalist to do once he arrived at Rockingham?
To do a presumptive test on the spot to tell me whether it was blood or not.
And how long would that take?
Well, that's done very, very quickly, within a minute or so.
And after that, after getting those results, you would have dispatched the criminalist down to Bundy?
Exactly.
Showing you 62C, the third photograph. What is depicted in that photograph?
That's a close-up view of what's being pointed out in the second photograph here. Photographer's scale and the number one there that's being photographed in the spot on the side of the car.
Is that the spot you saw that morning?
Yes, it is.
And 62D, the bottom left hand photograph here.
Yes.
What is depicted in that photograph?
That shows the Rockingham gate, the rear of the Bronco, and the numbers painted on the curb to the residence, 360.
You mentioned earlier, or rather you testified earlier, that the Bronco was parked in some manner that you found somewhat unusual. Is that right?
Yeah, it appeared to have been hastily parked, yes.
Okay. 62E, that's a photograph of the rear of the Bronco, is that right?
Yes,
It shows the curb as well.
yes,
And is that the manner in which the Bronco was parked when you first saw it?
yes.
And the final photograph on People 62, what's shown in that photograph?
That's a photograph from outside the vehicle into the cargo area that shows the package and a portion of the shovel and some other items that were in there.
Okay, thank you, Detective.
Mr. Darden, I was just wondering if you wanted to show that to the folks down at the other end, since you're standing between.
Detective, you told us that you called for a criminalist around 5:30, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And this is immediately after you saw the blood spot on the door.
That's correct.
Did Detective Furman point out any other blood stains or spots at that particular time to you?
You know, he may have, but I don't really recall. I don't really recall if he did or not, to me.
Okay. Okay, so what did you do after you noticed the blood spot and after you noticed, strike that, what did you do after you called for a criminalist?
I told Detective Furman that with the information I had, I was very concerned regarding the occupants of the home, that something could be wrong, that I felt that we needed to go and check, and that I wanted to confer with my partner. We walked up toward the Ashford Gate, met my partner and Detective Phillips. We went to the Ashford Gate. My partner and I discussed it, and we made a decision that we needed to go in and find out if everything was okay.
Was the black and white still there?
Yes,
Okay. Now, you told us a little while ago that Detective Phillips had attempted to contact West Tech Security on his cellular telephone.
that's correct.
Now, at any time prior to your entry onto the property, did a West Tech Security vehicle arrive?
Two West Tech security vehicles arrived.
And did you speak to either of the occupants of those vehicles?
I didn't personally speak, but I was standing back when Detective Phillips talked to him, yes.
Okay. Well, the first vehicle that arrived, do you recall what time that vehicle arrived?
That would have been shortly before 5:30 in the morning, I believe.
And did you or any other detective ask for the telephone number inside the Simpson residence?
Yes.
And were you given that number?
Ultimately, yes.
How long did it take to get that number?
Probably 10 minutes.
And you said that a second West Tech security vehicle arrived?
Yes, a supervisor.
Okay. Who gave you the number? Was it the supervisor?
The original unit that responded ultimately gave us the number.
Okay. And you mentioned a moment ago that you and Detective Furman had a discussion as to whether or not you should enter the property.
Well, it was more my discussion. I was telling him my concerns, that I felt that we needed to enter the property. He
Well-
voiced the same concerns.
Well, who brought up the issue first, if you
I did.
recall? Are you sure?
I'm positive.
Detective Furman didn't attempt to convince you of the need to enter the property?
Detective Furman could not convince me of anything. No, I was concerned. No, I was the one that was concerned.
And if you will, Detective, outline for us the information that you had at that time, up to that point, that caused you to be concerned that someone on the property might be injured.
Certainly. I had a location that appeared to be occupied, that had lights on in it. I had vehicles parked in the driveway. I had information that there was supposedly a live-in maid at the location. And I had what appeared to me to be blood on the outside. After leaving a very violent, bloody murder scene, I believed something was wrong there. I made a determination that we needed to go into the property.
You say that you had information that there was supposed to be a live-in maid on the property?
That's correct.
Where'd you get that information?
Came from West Tech Security.
Okay, and so to be clear, the information you had at that time that caused you to be concerned was the lack of any response from a live-in maid?
The lack of any response from anybody.
Okay. The lights on inside the house?
That's correct.
The fact that there were cars in the driveway?
Vehicles in the driveway.
You just left a bloody homicide scene?
Extremely bloody homicide scene.
There seemed to be blood on the door of the Bronco?
That's correct.
And you had some inclination that the Bronco was owned by Mr. Simpson?
Yes.
Okay. Now, had you ever met Mr. Simpson prior to that morning?
No.
Or that day, rather?
No.
Had you watched him play football over the years?
Yes, I've seen him play football.
Did you dislike Mr. Simpson for any reason?
No, I didn't know him. I thought he was a great football player.
Did you confer with Detective Lang on the issue of whether or not you should enter onto the property?
Yes.
Did you discuss that issue with Detective Phillips as well?
Detective Phillips was there, but I believe the discussion was between myself and my partner.
During that discussion, did any detective voice any opposition to scaling the wall?
No.
At that point, did you consider Mr. Simpson a suspect in the murder of Nicole Brown and the other man?
No.
You told us that Detective Furman cannot convince you of anything.
Well, it would be, I think I would take an independent look. I don't think I would be convinced of anything by anybody outside of my own independent look and my own conclusions that I would come to.
Who had the most experience on the job as far as being a homicide investigator at that time, if you knew,
Between who and who?
between you and Furman?
Me.
And of the four detectives, who was the most senior?
Well, there's two ways of being senior. Detective Phillips had the most time on the job. I believe I have three or so months in rank on my partner, but that, I don't consider that anything.
Well, it was your case and it was Detective Lang's case at that point, is that right?
That's correct. That's why we had the discussion.
And did you decide to scale the wall?
Yes.
Did Detective Furman volunteer to go over the wall?
Well, I think it was a consensus of opinion that he would, and that's based on a number of things. Number one, he's the youngest guy, and he's probably in better physical condition. And number two,
Probably.
well, okay, he is, I'll admit it. And number two, he's junior in rank, and that's normally the way things work. When a person is junior, they do the tough work like climbing fences or whatever.
So had he had Detective Furman rather had more rank or more seniority, or been a little older,
I would have probably gone over the fence.
and how old are you, Detective?
Do I need to answer that? I'll be 54 next month, sir.
When was the last time you climbed a wall?
Well, you know, you would be surprised. I climb walls a lot of times, so probably within the last week.
Did Detective Furman climb the wall?
Yes, he did.
Did you watch him as he climbed over the wall?
I did.
When he arrived, and that is Detective Furman, when he arrived at Rockingham, was he wearing his coat, if you recall?
When he got out of the car, he was not wearing his coat, no.
And when he climbed over the fence, or the wall, rather, was he wearing his coat?
No, he was not.
And do you know where his coat was?
I would assume it was in the vehicle. I didn't see the coat, but I never saw him wearing the coat either.
Okay. You never saw him wearing a coat at Rockingham?
Not that morning, no.
What happened after Detective Furman climbed over the wall?
There was a hinge-type release on the gate. He opened the gate and we entered the property.
And did someone bring him his coat at that time?
No.
Okay. What happened next?
Proceeded to the front door of the residence.
Can I have one more?
Yes.
Okay, so all four of you approached the front door at Rockingham?
That's correct.
Now, as you approached the front door, did you see a dog?
Yes, there was a dog on the property.
And when you saw that dog, did the dog begin barking?
No.
Did it growl?
No.
What did the dog do?
The dog was very docile. Normally, I have a...
You scared of dogs, are you?
Well, I'm not afraid, but I have a respect because I've been bitten by dogs in my career. And I was a little wary of this dog until I noticed the dog appeared very friendly. I walked up and petted the dog. The dog never made any sounds at all.
Okay. The dog did not seem aggressive at all.
Not at all.
And you'd never been at Rockingham.
Never.
What did you and the other detectives do when you reached the front door?
Knocked on the door, attempting to arouse someone within the residence.
Did you yourself knock?
Yes.
Did any of the other detectives knock at the door?
Detective Phillips may have, yes.
How long did you and the other detectives knock at the door?
I think we were there maybe 2 to 3 minutes to give someone that may be inside the residence a time to respond to the front door. We didn't get any response, though.
And was the light, or were the lights rather, still on inside the house?
Yes,
The vehicles were still parked in the driveway?
yes.
And had you any information at all at that time, any definitive information to suggest that there was no maid on the premises?
None whatsoever.
And you're concerned that someone might be hurt or injured?
Absolutely. It could have been an extension of the crime scene from Bundy.
What did you do after knocking at the door 2 or 3 minutes?
Not knowing the layout of the property, I wanted to observe the property to see if I could see any persons or anything. So I walked back to a walkway that ran east and west along the north side of the residence and walked down that walkway.
So you walked around the house, to the back of the house?
I walked to the north side and walked to the back of the house, that's correct.
And did Detective Furman go with you?
All four of us did.
Okay, you were all together?
Yes,
Was it still dark at that point?
yes,
Did you have your flashlight?
yes.
Did Detective Phillips have his flashlight?
Yes.
Can I have 1 moment, Your Honor?
Certainly.
Moment to get people 66, Your Honor. Detective, if you would step down from the witness stand, please. Yes, yes you do. Detective, if you will, show us on People 66 the route you took from the Ashford gate to the front door.
Absolutely. We walked, which would be south from Ashford Street, along the driveway after the gate was open, right to the entrance of the home right here.
You knocked at that door, the
That's
front
correct.
door.
That's
for two-
correct.
For 2 to 3 minutes.
That's correct?
Okay. You didn't attempt to force entry into the house at that point.
No,
You didn't kick the door in.
no.
What did you do next?
Not getting any response, I didn't know the outlay of the property. I wanted to view the property to see if there was anybody down, hurt, injured, or any persons there at all. So we came back out and walked to this east-west walkway that runs along the north side of the residence. And this is where I encountered the dog. I had seen the dog first when I was out here. The dog was in this area, but when I came back was when I actually encountered and petted the dog.
And then you say that you walked around to the back of the house, is that right?
That's correct. As I walked, I was looking around the property, shining my flashlight to see if I could see any persons or anything.
And at some point, did you reach a door?
Pardon?
At some point, did you arrive at a door in the back of the property?
Yes.
Okay. And where is that door located on People 66?
The door that I arrived at, or I arrived at a location just at the top of these stairs, and I observed Detective Phillips and Detective Lang at this door right here, which would be Kalen's room.
Okay. Now, prior to reaching Mr. Kalen's room, did you knock at the back door to the residence?
No, I observed my partner go to the back door and knock on the back door.
That would be Detective Lane.
That's correct.
You didn't knock yourself.
I did not.
What were you doing during the time that Detective Lang was knocking at that back door?
I was up in this area, shining my light, my flashlight around the area to see if I could see any persons or anybody down or anything, trying to observe the lay of the property and look to see if I could see anything.
You did not conduct a physical search of the property at that time?
I did not.
It was a visual search.
It was a visual search.
And were you basically stationary?
Yes.
How long did Detective Lang knock at the back door, if you recall?
Short time. We had been knocking at the front door with no response. He was there a short time.
Did you see anybody down or anyone injured or anyone at all out in the rear yard?
No, sir.
Only the detectives.
That's correct.
And I'm sorry, how long did you say Detective Lang knocked at the back door?
It was a short time, a minute maybe, a minute or less.
No one responded.
No one responded.
And what happened next, Detective?
I observed Detective Lang and Detective Phillips. I was behind them, and I believe I was actually the fourth in line at that point. Detective Lang and Detective Phillips approached this door. Detective Furman was someplace right in front of me, and I walked up behind him and was standing at the top when I observed Detective Phillips knock on the door here.
And the door you're referring to is the door to
Kalen's room.
Cato Kalin's room.
That's correct.
And who knocked at that door?
Detective Phillips.
And how long did he knock at Cato Kalin's door?
Just prior to knocking, there was some louvered windows here, and he leaned down and he looked in and he says, I see someone inside, or something to that effect. He knocked at the door, and actually pretty quickly the door was opened.
Okay. You didn't kick the door in?
No.
You didn't force entry?
No.
And someone did come to the door?
Yes,
And that is the person we now know as Cato Kalin.
that's correct.
Did someone speak to Mr. Kalin?
At that point, Detective Phillips did, yes.
Did you overhear that conversation?
Part of it.
Okay. What did you hear?
I heard him tell Kalin that we needed to get in touch with Mr. Simpson, and I heard Kalin tell him that Ronald Simpson was in the room next door.
Okay. What happened next?
I observed Phillips and Lang, my partner, start toward that room. I followed, and I observed Furman go into Kalen's room behind me.
Now, did you think it was unusual at all that Detective Furman entered Mr. Kalin's room?
Not at all.
There is this term in police science called officer safety, is that right?
It's a very critical term, yes.
And what does that term mean?
It means that that you deploy the people that you have with you as best you can to ensure your own personal safety when you're in a situation you don't really know what you have.
And did you have that notion in mind when you left Detective Furman at Cato Kalin's room?
Yeah, that's always a concern. That's one of the primary things you do, and you almost do that unconscious. I mean, that's just something that's done in police work. At that point, I believe that Detective Furman was going to identify and find out who this person was and find out if he had the right to be on the property and so on and so forth. Officer safety just comes as a natural thing. That's something you always do regardless of the situation that you're in.
And that's a very narrow walkway there in front of Mr. Kalin's room and in front of Miss Ronald Simpson's room, isn't it?
That's correct, yes.
It's not easy to escape from that location, is it?
Not at all.
We'll strike that. There's a cement wall adjacent to the walkway?
Yes.
Okay. And it's a rather high wall, is that right? Fairly high?
But you're talking about the north side?
Yes.
Yeah, it's. I think there was 3 or 4 steps that go up to a landing, and this is a drop-down walkway. And I can't tell you exactly. It could have been 3.5 to 4 feet high. Yes.
Okay, so Detective Furman went into Cato Kalin's room.
That's correct.
And you and the other 3 detectives walked down to Miss Simpson's room?
Yes.
And what happened there?
I believe, as I recall, either one of the 2, Lang or Phillips, knocked on the door. It was pretty quickly opened, and I had moved up behind. I heard Phillips ask her if she knew where her father was. We needed to get in touch with him. We had an emergency. And she answered that question with actually what I considered a question of her own. She gestured toward the house and said, "Isn't he here?" Pointing like toward the house. And I said to her at that point, I don't know, Izzy, can we go inside and check? We need to check. Do you have a key? And she says, yes.
And at that point, did she obtain a key?
Yes, she obtained a key from inside the room and led us down the walkway to the rear door.
Now, did she enter through the rear door?
That's correct.
Did she use a key to enter into the rear door?
Yes.
And did she allow you access inside the house?
Yes.
She never objected.
No.
Now, where was Detective Furman, if you know, when you entered the house through the rear door?
I believe he was still in Kalen's room. That's my belief.
I'm going to ask you to retake the stand.
Yes, sir.
Do we need the exhibit at this point?
Detective Furman did not enter the house along with yourself and Detectives Lang and Phillips and Ms. Simpson?
No, he did not.
Where did you go once you entered the house?
As we entered the house, I asked Ronald Simpson where the maid's quarters were. I wanted to check and make sure if there was a maid there, if she was okay. And I was led through a bar area into the kitchen and then into a utility room at the south side of the kitchen. She opened a door to what appeared to be the maid's quarters. I looked in and everything appeared to be in order.
You say that you told Ms. Simpson that you wanted to look into the maid's quarters to see if the maid was okay?
I asked her if I could to show me where the maid's quarters were.
Did she ever tell you that the maid was off?
No.
Okay, so you looked inside the maid's quarters and everything seemed to be
In order,
okay.
yes.
What happened next?
At that point, I came back to the kitchen. I believe she had already walked out of the utility room back into the kitchen and was conversing with Detective Phillips. I overheard her tell Detective Phillips that she could make a phone call, I believe to her father's secretary, and she could find out where her father was. And she started making a phone call.
And what did you do at that point?
I wanted to inspect the bottom floor of the home to make sure there was no one down or injured in the home. I started walking back to the bar area to look at the north side of the ground floor of the residence. And as I was exiting the kitchen, I was stopped by Detective Furman.
And did you have a conversation with Detective Furman at that time?
I did.
What was that conversation?
Detective Furman told me that he had seated Brian Kalen, or he referred to him as Cato, at the bar. I could see him sitting on a bar stool. And he told me that I should talk to Cato to hear what he had to say. And he gave me the inference that he was going out to check the grounds at that point.
Well, how did he give you that inference?
Well, I mean, that's part of police work. When something unusual happens, if you have officers there, we're all four working at the same time. He apparently thought he had found some very very good information, and I just draw the inference from him telling me that he's going to check that area.
Did Detective Furman tell you what, if anything, Kalen had already told him?
Yeah, he said briefly that Kalen had told him that he'd heard a very loud thump outside his room that he thought was possibly an earthquake, and that I should talk to him.
And did you see Detective Furman leave your presence at that point?
Yes.
Where did he go?
As I recall, he walked toward the entranceway to the home, the front entranceway.
And where did you go at that point?
I sat down at the bar area with Brian Kalen.
And did you have a conversation with Mr. Kalen at that time?
I did.
Can I have one moment, Your Honor?
Certainly.
You did have a conversation with Mr. Kalen at that time.
Yes.
And how long did that conversation take?
Well, it was probably in the vicinity of 5 minutes. I had a conversation with him, and then after a conversation, I went back and I started writing notes. I was going to do a statement, and while I was writing the notes, I was interrupted
And were you interrupted by someone or something?
by someone,
Okay, who was that?
Detective Furman.
And did you have a conversation with Detective Furman at that time?
Yes,
And where were you when you had that conversation with Detective Furman?
in the bar area of the home.
And how much time had elapsed between Detective Furman telling you that he was going outside and this second interruption?
Boy, I would have to estimate that. I would say 10 minutes or so.
During the time that you spoke to Mr. Kalen, did you ever ask him if he had keys to the Bronco?
During this conversation?
Yeah.
Not during that initial conversation. I asked him later.
Okay. And we'll come back to that. What was the conversation you had with Detective Furman at that time?
Detective Furman asked me to accompany him to the south side of the residence. He wanted to show me something.
Did he tell you what it was that he wanted to show you at that time?
He could have. I don't know. He could have. I don't remember him saying, but he could have.
Did Detective Furman tell you whether or not he'd already shown that same item to Detectives Phillips and Lane?
You know, I don't know whether that occurred or not. That could have occurred also. I don't know. I don't recall that.
At any event, Detective Furman did take you somewhere, is that right?
That's correct.
And where did you and Detective Furman go?
I followed him out the front door of the residence, walked south in the driveway to the front of the garage, and he took me down the south boundary line of the property.
Your Honor.
People's 116.
Detective, if you would step down for a moment. Detective, showing you 116A. I could do this one. Shown in 116A.
116A is the Rockingham driveway that would lead in an east-west direction from the Rockingham gate into the front of the garage. This is and this would be the south property line of the residence at 360.
Okay, so that dark area to the right of the photograph is the entrance way to the south side of the property, is it?
Well, actually, you can see the whole dark area here. If you went directly west from here, this would be the Rockingham gate. This dark area you see here is a cyclone fence, chain link fence. It's overgrown with shrubbery and vines.
Okay. Was the chain link fence locked or enclosed at that time?
I'm not sure I understand.
Okay, well, the question is this: was there a gate across the pathway there?
There were two gates once you entered the pathway, yes.
Okay, were either of those gates locked?
No.
All right, so this is the path in which you walked in as you proceeded on the south side of the property.
That's correct.
You followed Detective Furman?
Yes.
And did you speak with him as you walked along the pathway?
Oh, I'm sure we were talking. I don't know exactly what we were saying, but I'm sure we were talking.
And what is shown in 116B?
116B is the walkway that I've been telling you about that's at the south property line of 360 Rockingham. You can see in this portion here part of the chain link fence and the foliage that grows between the two residences at 360 and the one directly south of it.
Now, these photographs were taken during daylight hours, is that right?
Yes, sir.
What time was it that you began your walk along the path depicted in these photographs?
I believe it was approximately 6:30 in the morning. Approximately 6:30.
And does 116B depict the path that you walked?
Yes, sir,
that
it does.
Okay. Now, in the background, do you see something extending from the wall?
Yes, I do.
And what do you see?
I would assume you're speaking of this here, the air conditioning unit that I first observed the front of in Brian Kalin's room.
You did notice the air conditioning unit in Brian Kalin's room?
Yes, I did.
And did this air conditioner, the portion that you saw, appear to be an extension of Mr. Kalin's air conditioner?
Yes.
116C? You continued to follow Detective Furman down the path, is that right?
Yes, sir, that's correct. Excuse me just a moment, please.
Did you have those
sorry.
glasses on that morning, Detective?
I need them for real close-up stuff. I can see great at a distance, but up close I need glasses.
Okay, 116C is just another photograph of the pathway, is that correct?
Yeah, that's a close-up of an area just which would be just west of where the air conditioning unit is, yes.
And do you see something on the ground there in 116C?
Yes, sir, I do.
Need your glasses?
Well, no, I can see it, but it would be easier. Right here on the ground, right there, is an item that was shown to me by Detective Furman.
In 116D?
Uh-huh. This is the item that was pointed out to me by Detective Furman, which is a right-hand brown man's leather glove.
Now, when the glove was shown to you by Detective Furman, I take it that you walked toward it.
Yeah, I walked up within probably 3 to 4 feet of it.
Did you pick it up?
No.
Did you touch it in any way?
No, sir.
Did you turn it over?
No, sir.
From a distance of 3 to 4 feet, could you see what the item was?
Yes, I illuminated it with my flashlight. I could see it.
Okay. And did you need your flashlight?
It was getting light at this point. It was beginning to lighten up. Dawn was breaking, but it's still pretty dark along the side of the house because of the amount of foliage that's grown between the two residences. I could see the item without my flashlight. I illuminated the item to make sure I was seeing what I was seeing.
And what did you see?
A brown leather man's right-handed glove.
And what is shown in 116E?
That's the original location and the glove that was pointed out to me that morning.
And in 116F?
That's a closer picture of the same object.
Now, there is a tag bearing the number 9 in 116F. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And why is that tag there?
That is a evidence number that was given that item by the criminalist before it was recovered to document the order in which the evidence was recovered that morning. So this 9 would indicate that this would be item 9 on the property report.
So at some point, the criminalist did arrive at the location, is that right?
Yes, sir, he did.
And did the criminalist examine that glove at the location at all, if you know?
What do you mean by examine?
Well, did he pick it up in your presence?
No, he did not.
Did he test it in any way in your presence?
No, he did not.
When you saw the glove, did you notice whether or not it appeared moist or sticky?
When I illuminated the glove, it appeared to have blood on the glove, or what looked to me like blood, and it didn't appear to be dried blood where it would be flaking and falling off. It appeared that it was moist.
And the blood that you saw back at Bundy, just prior to your departure, a few minutes before 5 in the morning,
Yes, sir.
did that blood appear to be dry?
No.
Certainly.
Did the glove appear shiny at all?
It appeared to be wet with something which would make it shiny or moist. It appeared to be a leather man's glove.
Okay. And what we're talking about here are appearances, is that right, Detective?
Yes, sir.
You didn't pick it up,
No, sir.
so you don't know if it was wet or not.
No, I don't know that for a fact.
Is this a convenient time to break, Your Honor?
Yourself. All right, can we have the exhibit taken down there, please? Thank you.
Forward
Yes.
to the jury for 1 moment, Your Honor.
Don't go away. Thank you, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we're going to take our recess for the afternoon. Please remember my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Do not conduct any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you. Do not allow anybody to communicate with you with regard to the case. And we will stand in recess until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. And Detective Van Adder, you're ordered to return tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right? Thank you, counsel. We'll stand in recess.